Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I was going to get you set up a sign. You can write out what you wanted to. She brought up some issues that were good.
Before we make any decision.
I want to make sure that you're fine. That way you can sit beside me. So we'll go back to here. Yeah, if you want to just do a little refresh.
Hi, how are you? This feels like I'm in Parliament. I'm crossing the floor. Wow.
Your day.
speaking? I'm just waiting to see whether you guys are going to allow walk-ons.
Ask everybody to take their seats, please. Call this meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Other individuals in the media may also be audibly and/or visually recording this meeting. As well, a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during the committee meetings. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, there are quite a few. Added delegations, and I apologize in advance for any names that I mispronounce. Keenan Loomis, President and CEO of Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Christina Heaton, Richard Gelder, Kathy Stonehouse, Cynthia Tuck, Larry Pomerantz, Hamilton Civic Lead, Svana Julianson, the Board of Hamilton Artists, Inc. Edward Berry is a resident. He has withdrawn. Lindsay Goddard, Sandy Leyland, Damon Starr, Brandon Curtis, Maureen Wilson has withdrawn. David Smith, Don McLean, Biljana I'm going to mess this one, I'm sorry, Vasilveska, Marcia Duncan, Kenneth Jackson, Adrian Mladenovich, Dave Barnett. And we also have written submissions from Terry Bridle, David Hitchcock, Dina Guillermo, Dennis Martin, Nancy Gray, Chair of Dundas Art and Craft Association, Deanna Bouchard, Maxine Borsellino, Brenda Ferguson, the Board Chair for Culture for Kids in the Arts, Jason Bester, Carm Ratar, and Kenneth Davies.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Green.
Yes, Mr. Deputy, through you to members of council, at the appropriate time, I'll be motioning that we accept any additional walk-ins that might come in. I know some residents from my community had intended to come, and whether they're able to attend or not, I think it's important that we get a chance to listen.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. And when that time comes to put a motion on after the other delegates have ended, we have to remind ourselves that some of the councillors have booked themselves for a later event tonight, and so we must have quorum. So when that time comes, I'll be expecting a motion from you. Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Pearson, Councillor B. Johnson, all those in favor? Any against? It's carried. Any declarations of interest? Being none, members of the committee, as we have quite a long speakers list, I want to remind everyone of the 5-minute time allotment for each presenter. And then also the members of the committee, I would also like to take one motion at the end of the speakers list to receive all the presentations. So we will stick to that 5-minute rule for everybody to get through. And I would now like to call upon Michelle Martin and Lisa Scump from the Salvation Army Lawson Ministries respecting community access to transportation and city-funded bus training program. Please come forward.
Through the chair, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak about the Community Access to Transportation Program, a city-funded program that teaches adults with a developmental disability to learn to ride the bus. As you've seen in the preliminary operating budget with reference to Form S28, Accessible Transportation Services is requesting $350,000 to provide bus training to 200 more individuals over the next 2 years. And I'm here today to tell you why program funding should continue.
Great. I'll be there. Thank you. Bye. Mom, I got a job at the bowling alley.
That's great, Kevin.
Yeah, I am so excited.
When do you start?
I start 3 weeks on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Uh-oh. Those are the days that I volunteer at the hospital, and your dad works all week. How are you going to get there?
If it's too far to walk to take my bike, maybe I take the bus.
But you've never taken the bus before.
I could learn, but I need someone to help me.
I could help.
Who said that?
I did.
Who are you?
I'm the narrator. I'm going to help you learn to take the bus. You won't be able to see me, but you will be able to hear my voice.
Okay, when can we start?
Right now.
In fall of 2011, the city provided $400,000 to a 2-year training project, hoping to save money by diverting trips from DARTS to the HSR as Hamilton met its obligations under the AODA transportation standard to provide transportation to ambulatory individuals with developmental disabilities by creating opportunities for independent travel using a sustainable training model. It was administered by Salvation Army Lawson Ministries Hamilton with developmental services agency partners from across the city, including both school boards, and partner agencies contributed to the project in kind by providing qualified staff as bus trainers. The project had a 75% successful completion rate. We used both classroom instruction and field training. Classroom instruction included classes about pedestrian safety, personal safety, and basic route planning. And field training occurred one-to-one with an agency-based field trainer who used a detailed task analysis and fated prompting along a bus route. Instructional videos were produced by Airborne Video Productions, a video production company that uses video production professionals who happen to have a developmental disability.
When you see the bus coming, line up at the bus stop sign so that the bus driver knows you want to take the bus. Remember not to stand too close to the curb. Trust your instincts. If you get a bad feeling about a situation, go to a safe place where there are more people.
Trainees and alumni, since 2012, we've added video segments about level railway crossings, accessible buses, and service animals. Trainees and alumni have met up several times to socialize and learn. We've had many guest speakers, including 2 HSR bus trainers, Kevin and Margaret, who stayed with us one evening to answer questions about operating the bus. In its third-party evaluation of the project, the Social Planning Research Council of Hamilton determined that the project met its goals and conservatively estimated potential net savings from the original project as a return on investment ranging between 26% and 186%. ATS is now asking for $350,000 for 2 years, $50,000 less than the original project, and so we predict an even better rate of return going forward. Based on SPRC Evaluation's conservative estimate of savings, continuing the program for just 1 year at a cost of $175,000 plus HSR costs will generate savings of at least $706,000 over 10 years from 100 participants taking fewer rides on DARTS and more on HSR. And as the program continues, we'll track DARTS usage of all participants more closely so we can report next year to verify that projected savings have been met. At the end of the summer 2014, we received an additional $40,000 from available HSR funds in order to address the wait list that we had coming out of the original project. So right now we're currently training or have finished training 18 more people, and we'll be taking on a few more this month and next. Right now, though, since September, we have another 50 on a waiting list as we continue to receive inquiries. This excerpt from a letter to the Hamilton Spectator from a parent of a trainee speaks to the very real worth of this program and for its participants, and to the City of Hamilton's strategic priority number 1, a prosperous and a healthy community. The Social Planning Research Council survey of trainee caregivers reports an average of 22 trips per month per successful trainee on the HSR, so this program is creating committed HSR users.
The best part of taking a bus is that, is that they're nice bus drivers. That is the best part, because without them, we wouldn't be taking a bus. We would be just walking.
So I'd like to introduce you to committed HSR user Ben, a graduate of the bus training program. So Ben, do you want to tell us where you learned to travel with your trainer?
Well, I take the bus to East Gate, and then I take the bus down here, and then we come back to East Gate and then come home.
Which bus do you take?
The B-line.
Do you ever take the King bus?
No.
Why not?
Because the King bus stops at every stop.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you very kindly. Appreciate it. We have a question to be asked to Councillor B. Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you, Ben. Ben's such a sweetheart. You were talking about numbers earlier, and it was $400,000 initially in 2011. We're coming back for $350,000, which is remarkably lower. Can you tell us, for 2 years, thank you, can you tell us how many individuals, because I think you were touching on a little bit, but overall, $400,000, how many people actually were you helping?
Okay, so 201 people began the training program. Out of those, 151 successfully completed. So we did have a demittal rate for safety reasons and also a dropout rate.
So about 3/4. That's great. And so for $350,000, you have 50 on the waiting list. Are you anticipating another 200 to start?
I think so, based on this, because I actually haven't been actively marketing the program. These are the inquiries that have just kept on coming, and I was waiting to find out about funding status before I went and actively promoted again. But I can tell you that I have been asked to speak at 3 different events this spring that are geared towards transition-aged youth. That's youth aged 18 to 21 with special needs from our local school boards.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, to our speaker, is 200 your limit?
Well, it depends on availability of trainers. If I have trainers available and we can manage it from available funding, it depends on how many hours particular individuals are taking to learn routes. Through Mr. Chair, last time we found the average to be about 33 hours, I think it was, but we fund up to 40 for each individual, and some of those individuals learned more than one bus route. So.
Thank you, and thank you for your answers, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Swetlaufer, and Ben, thank you for coming all the way out from Winona.
Thank you, and thank you very much for you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you coming today. Next on the list is Scott Innes, respecting the 2015 budget. Scott, please come up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Scott Innes. I'm a recently retired professional engineer. I've lived in Hamilton since 1959. I believe we can do a much better job with transit projects in Hamilton. Hamilton Council, you folks, have been ambivalent towards the large HSR projects that have been proposed, with good reason. 7 out of 15 wards in the city do not feel served by the HSR and do not pay the transit levy. The B-line LRT is proposed to cost about $1 billion of provincial taxpayers' money and will only affect the Main King Lower City East-West corridor. The interest cost alone on this project is about $50 million. And if 2 million new riders are added, they will only add $4 million in fare revenue. Clearly the cost is way out of proportion with the benefits. Provincial money is not free to me, the taxpayer. Just because a solution makes sense in Toronto does not mean it's a good idea in Hamilton. We're a different city with different problems and different assets. The HSR has a chance, however, to become a key element in the success of the whole region. Here are 7 ideas. 1. The HSR could help to relieve the twice-daily traffic jam on the 403 that slows traffic to stop and go from the Link to the Queenie. I would suggest running an express bus route east along the Link, picking up commuters at each interchange and at the power center for Ancaster commuters, driving down the shoulder of the 403 like they do in Mississauga to the Aberdeen exit, adding and dropping passengers in the Fortinos Plaza to access both the Main King bus routes as well as the Dundurn King GO bus stop. Re-entering the 403 from King Street, driving along the 403 to the Aldershot GO. Each bus has the potential to take 50 to 80 cars off this overloaded access, and the car drivers will rapidly see the benefits of busing to the GO rather than driving when they're stopped and the bus passes them. This should be done as a joint venture with GO Transit because it needs to be integrated. These buses should be Wi-Fi enabled so that the commuters can work and skim the net while they commute. Second idea, use the GPS and wireless communication already installed on the buses to space the buses and have the service arrive when the customers need it. We can take some pointers from Uber. 3 point. Make the poorly used routes more cost-effective by using minibuses and perhaps subcontracting the low-volume routes. 4, service new business development around the airport that was just approved, as well as the new passenger airline that was just announced, by running an express bus route from the airport to the downtown GO stations. This service can charge quite a premium. Just look at the express service to Pearson is charging. I believe it's $45 a person. 5, look at turning the bus trip up and down the Jollycut from a brake-killing, fuel-wasting trip to a fuel-efficient, speedy, tourist and commuter experience by examining the cost and benefits of an overhead gondola service from downtown to a bus transfer point near Sam Lawrence Park in the mountain. Rather than making the escarpment a negative, turn it into the asset that it is. 6, create a joint venture with McMaster University to develop, design, and improve state-of-the-art technology like regenerative brakes or inductive charging of batteries. If the ideas are good enough, let's create some manufacturing jobs once again in Hamilton. 7, implement an HSR methods improvement program that is charged with improving customer service and reducing costs every year. I believe that the HSR can be a major city builder, and that means all 15 wards. If some of its projects relieve car traffic congestion in the exurbs and drive the development of the city, then the 7 outer wards can rightly be expected to contribute their share because they're receiving value for their money. We have a great opportunity right now. Let's make this city better. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Scott. And we have a question to be asked. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Scott. I just wanted to clarify because you mentioned about the outlying areas not contributing. We do contribute.
That's what I was referring to.
I just want to be sure to the public and for you that it's not that we're not contributing. It's just a different form.
On a reduced basis.
Correct.
Thank you. But you're not contributing a full amount. Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
So thanks, Scott. We appreciate you coming down today. And sorry, Scott. Hang on, Councillor Marilla.
Just on that point, however, there are some wards that don't contribute at all. Some are, just for a point of clarification.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again, Scott. Appreciate it. Next presenter is Stephanie Vey, Executive Director of the Hamilton Arts Council, respecting the 2015 budget.
Is that working now? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure what was going on there.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello. Okay. Just making sure that that sound issue is taken care of now. Okay, good afternoon, Deputy Mayor, councillors. On behalf of the Hamilton Arts Council, I am here today to ask you to sustain the leadership you've already shown in adopting the City Enrichment Fund last fall by approving the additional funding required to ensure this new program succeeds. As you know, a $500,000 increase in arts investment, as well as a $250,000 proposed for other City Enrichment Fund programs, didn't appear on this year's budget without substantial effort and due process. These requests are the result of 4 years of community-engaged research and development led by a volunteer task force of the Arts Advisory Commission and reinforced by consultations with hundreds of stakeholders in the arts. City Council played a substantial role in this work by having heard and approved the multiple reports brought forward by the Arts Funding Task Force, and most crucially by unanimously approving the City Enrichment Fund last September. By adopting this new investment strategy, including its 8 proposed arts funding streams, the City has shown its commitment to supporting the arts through a fair and transparent process that reflects best practices found across Canada. Council's leadership was instrumental in bringing about these long overdue changes and is even more crucial now in ensuring that the City Enrichment Fund has adequate funding to serve Hamilton's arts community. City staff have verified that the Arts Funding Task Force research demonstrating that an additional $1 million is the minimum amount required to deliver support through these new funding programs, and they've also created an attainable path for achieving that goal through a phased 3-year approach, of which this initial $500,000 request is a critical first step. Without this additional investment, the work of the last 4 years to rally the arts community and City Council around this new funding model will be seriously undermined, perhaps irreparably so. Many deserving arts organizations in all parts of our city have already submitted their applications to the new program in a spirit of good faith and hope that we simply cannot afford to ignore. If we cannot deliver on the minimum level of arts investment promised by the City Enrichment Fund, Hamilton will continue to fall far behind similar-sized Canadian cities in its per capita investment in the arts and struggle to retain the creative culture it needs to succeed as a diverse and inviting city. As recently as just a week ago today, the National Post wrote the latest in what I think we all know is a growing number of positive stories about Hamilton's revival. This one focused on the Royal Connaught and the flurry of home buying that's happening in our downtown. The conclusion of the article reads, and I'm quoting directly here, "The Royal Connaught aside, it would be an oversight not to credit Hamilton's transformative energy to the city's arts community, those behind the indie coffee shops, restaurants, and music and arts scene on James Street North. On every measure we use to call a city great, from the social and cultural to the purely economic, the arts deliver a huge return on even the most modest investment, such as the one we're discussing today. You could pour this $500,000 into market research, into an ad campaign, any of those sorts of mechanisms, and you would still fail to generate a buzz as authentic or as widespread as what the arts have generated for Hamilton just by doing what comes naturally to all of us who work in the creative sector. So long as we're still able to shed light on the city's forgotten corners, push the boundaries of the possible, and create experiences that connect people to their pride in this place, the arts will continue to be an essential part of our shared efforts to build a positive and progressive vision for Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And appreciate it. Any questions? Being none, we thank you very kindly. We appreciate you taking the time. Next one is Rodrigo Nero Perez, McMaster Students Union, respecting comments from full-time undergraduates regarding the bus lane closure and light rail transit.
I just want to start by thanking Council for allowing us to speak to you today about some issues that are important to undergraduate students here in McMaster and Hamilton's Transit. My name is Rodrigo Naro Perez, and I'm the McMaster Students Union Vice President Education.
My name is Jacob Brodka. I'm the MSU Vice President Administration. To give you a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today, since this is the first time that the MSU does present to this new council, we're going to give you a brief overview of kind of what our organization represents. And then we're going to touch on, as was briefly described, student retention and city engagement and how that's a priority for our organization, as well as transit with respect to bus lanes, LRT, and future conversations about how you can engage with our organization and how we hope to engage with council. So with respect to what the MSU is, we're an organization that represents all full-time undergraduate students at McMaster University. So our constituency yearly is about 22,000 students. We have 40 full-time staff members, 200 plus part-time students working for our organization, and amongst them, hundreds of volunteers. We offer 30 plus services in a variety of business units through the university. And on an annual basis, our revenue is in the range of $12 million.
One of the priorities for our organization is student engagement and retention with the City of Hamilton. The MSU greatly values all the cultural, social, and employment opportunities that Hamilton has to offer. For the past 5 years, I'm proud to call myself a Hamiltonian resident, having spent my childhood in Milton, Ontario. We engage students through a variety of different ways. One of them that just occurred a couple of weeks ago was the Discover Your City campaign that we collaborated with the Tourism and Culture Division of the city to engage and highlight a variety of opportunities that students could engage with throughout the city. And that was done through our service, the Student Community Support Network, that engages also the local community surrounding McMaster. Unfortunately, something that is a very real issue is that there are some students who have a preconceived idea about what Hamilton has to offer and are not as engaged or do not want to stay here. And something that we did back in 2012 was a Your City survey where we surveyed around 1,000 students and got their impression about the city. So we're just going to go a little bit of glimpses as to what that showed and how that ties in with transit.
So to give you a brief snapshot at the current landscape as it was in the 2011-2012 year, some of the questions that we asked students was how often you're traveling outside of campus into the community. So as you can see from this brief snapshot, almost a quarter of the students who responded to the survey indicated that they're using or traveling outside of campus daily because they're a Hamilton resident. And moreover than that, the majority indicated that at least once or twice a week they are leaving campus. And beyond that, with respect to retention, a question we asked students was if they would consider looking for employment opportunities in the city. And a red flag, I guess, in our books was that a quarter of students indicated that no, they would much rather seek employment elsewhere. So this is a concern for us. And with respect to this survey, we are doing a Your City Survey 2.0. And that will be rolling out in the next few months. We're hoping to get kind of an update as to where students stand and how they perceive the city. But with respect to retention, this is certainly a red flag in our books.
So whenever we talk about student retention, one of the issues that continues to be highlighted by students is transit. Whenever we discuss the city with students, something that they keep talking about is how the current system operates for them. Unfortunately, some students say that it is difficult to navigate, it can be counterintuitive, and they do not feel comfortable enough. Whenever we ask what is one of the barriers that you see when engaging the city of Hamilton, transit gets brought up time and time again. So just to give a little bit of why is it that the MSU here has a really big part on transit is, for those in the room who do not know, every MSU member receives a 12-month HSR bus pass at a cost of $138. And if we calculate by the amount of members we have, that is around $3.05 million. With a 2014 revenue of $48 million, the MSU contributes 6.35% of the total HSR annual revenue. For us, transit, it is an imperative to have high quality and reliable service, so students are encouraged to explore and see all of the wonderful things that the city has to offer.
With respect to the bus lane, especially in Council's recent decision, the MSU believes that the designation of the bus lane, especially on the King Street corridor, increases the efficiency of transit along that route and further encourages students to use transit system. So by a unanimous vote of the MSU's council, the MSU condemns the discontinuation of the bus lane and urges City Council to not just reconsider that decision, but in the future and with future long-term recommendations, consider other ways that we can make public transit more efficient and easy to use.
Finally, something that has been discussed quite a few times in this room is light rail transit. Since 2008, the MSU has been supporting LRT here in this city, and we clearly believe that its implementation will not only benefit MSU members, but all of the Hamilton community. It has been provided through a variety of different research projects how LRT can provide not only just economic growth, but a variety of different social, health, and environmental impacts in this city. With the recent provincial funding secured, we encourage that as you go through the budget process to strongly consider implementing LRT to improve this city's transit and thereby engaging more students and encouraging students to stay here after graduation. As Jacob mentioned, we are in the midst of surveying students once again about what are their perceptions of this city, and we're implementing it within the next week, and we're more than happy to share those results as they come in within the next month or so. This is the first time that, as Jacob mentioned, that the MSU engages with City Council, and we hope to come and speak a variety of different times about other issues, but just wanted to prioritize one that students throughout the university continuously talk about, and that is the imperative to improve the city's transit system.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we have a speakers list. Councillor Whitehead, Councillor Farr, and Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just actually came from Mohawk College, and they have a slightly different view on the transportation network because of the challenges on the mountain and getting to Mohawk College. So it just shows you that there are special interests in regards to who they serve, where they live, and so forth within the community. And our challenge as a council is to ensure that we have a comprehensive system for all. And in fact, this is my souvenir from Mohawk College just half an hour ago. So I really appreciate, though, because it's important to understand what you're hearing from your students, because you're developing the skill sets that'll be needed in the future for future potential employers in this community. So it is important that we listen. So I want to thank you for that. The question I have for you is, do you have a breakdown geographically where the majority of your members live and where they commute?
Yeah, we have approximate numbers from our off-campus research center in the university. We approximate that a minimum of 10,000 students live immediately within the McMaster area, and we estimate around 5,000 to the 10. We do not have solid numbers live within the rest of the city, so a minimum for sure of 10,000 just immediately right in the McMaster area.
Okay, and the reason I ask that because it's important, because again it's back to perspectives. Depending on where you live, if you all live immediately to near the university, you may have one perspective in regards to the transit network. If you live on the mountain or Stony Creek and other areas, you might have a different perspective on the transit. So were you able to you identify one issue, the bus line, but it's a narrow issue relative to the larger cities. Did you narrow any other issues in regards to the transportation shortfalls?
I think you touched on it, and the question inherently has an answer in it. We also engage with the Mohawks Student Association and other organizations in the community. With respect to like the small issue that is like the King Street bus lane, the reason why we are bringing that up here today is more than just the fact that it's an efficient way to use a bus stand on one main arterial road. I think it's a part of a bigger picture, and that's a commitment from this council to look at and say that we are standing behind moving towards efficient transit in general. Whether that means progressing towards LRT, whether that means looking to further improve public transit for the numerous benefits that there is. It's part of a really multi-tiered approach to do a number of things. For example, one thing that I'm sure a lot of students in general, regardless of what institution you go to, can get behind is like revitalization of our downtown core and how transit relates to that. How can we attract young professionals to stay in the Hamilton community? Part of that is efficient public transportation. So I think there's a number of different issues that relate to it, and there's a number of different variables depending on where you are coming from. But I do think that there's also a number of common things, regardless of who you talk to from a student perspective, that relate to like the efficiency of transit in general.
And I appreciate that. I think what I heard when I just came from the college is that what's more important than dealing with one geographic area of the city is to make sure that you have a very robust public transit system throughout the whole city, which would, if you placed a greater emphasis on priority, LRT, one geographic area, or a robust transit system throughout the city, every time they would follow on that robust system serving the broader city. So I hope that is certainly a discussion that you're having amongst yourselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Farr.
Great presentation. I got it completely, and I appreciate hearing from the future, which is you, and the retention tying into a modal shift and what our young people today are focused on in terms of what is an attraction for an urban center, what keeps them here, and transit factors in greatly to that conversation you're having today. Maybe we weren't having back when I went to Mac or whatever school the previous speaker may have gone to. But the whole point is that it's an attraction and it's a major focus. And congratulations, by the way, on making this city proud. My understanding is, I think I read it in the Toronto Star, your recent school elections blew every other university away. You don't have to convince me after reading that article that McMaster University students are not engaged, or very much are considering that voter turnout. So of 22,000, I think it was over 50% or close to it. So well done, guys. Great presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to our presenters, I want to thank you for bringing this presentation, although anecdotally, you know, we all get a sense of the power of the student body. McMaster, your presentation very clearly outlined what it is that you bring in terms of a contribution to the community. And I hope that you continue to collaborate and to create a kind of a collective voice with the other learning institutions, be it Redeemer or Mohawk College. Hopefully we'll have, you know, perhaps Mohawk College present on behalf of their Students Association. It'd be good to hear from them directly what their position is on transit, because I think that is a very good point brought up. And not to take away from my councillor colleague, I would also prefer to hear them present and communicate for themselves what it is they'd like to see out of transit. But I encourage you to continue to stay the course with this conversation. As you know, decisions will be made over the next few months, and I'm certainly hoping that we'll see you more frequently, making sure that you are making your voices heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Rodrigo and Jacob. We appreciate you coming down. The next presenter is Claire Lahid, from the Executive Director, Dundas Valley School of Art, respecting the 2015 budget. Claire, could you come down, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Lahid, and I am the Executive Director of the Dundas Valley School of Art. And I'm here to speak in support of the City Enrichment Fund. The DVSA was founded by volunteers in 1964, which means that we have just recently celebrated our 50th anniversary. We serve over 4,000 registered students annually and serve another 6,000 throughout the community through our outreach programs and events. We provide art courses that include traditional studio offerings, such as drawing and painting, but we also have a significant pottery program, jewelry classes, art history, textile arts, children's programs, and much more. Throughout the Dundas Valley School of Art's history, we've contributed to the growth and desirability of the community. Many of our new students in Dundas comment on the fact that the DVSA's presence is a part of their decision to move to the area. We routinely participate in community events, and we support other nonprofits. We work with a number of cultural groups throughout Dundas and the Greater Hamilton area to undertake efficiencies, both through joint programming and through collaborative marketing. We work with local service agencies, and we provide arts programming to underserved communities. We work with the local school boards through our Artist Connections program to ensure that students of all ages experience real works of art in their schools. As a service provider, we're watching our community grow and change. Each year, we're providing over 50 scholarships to students who are in need, and the demand for support continues to grow. We not only provide tuition, but help with materials and fees when that's the level of help that a student requires. We may be an art school, but students also see us as a home away from home, a refuge, a community where they can celebrate and sometimes grieve, where they explore and often heal. And through all of this, we are also a small business, and I think not an atypical one in the cultural community. Our budget is designed to run as efficiently as possible. Through our registered programs, we work very hard to raise 65% of our budget, with grants, donations, and fundraising to raise the other 35%. Our city grant annually is $26,000. That represents 2.4% of our annual budget. We are one of the largest employers in Dundas. We have 4 full-time employees, 5 contract staff, and have 110 faculty members. When we run our operation through the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sports Tourist Region Economic Impact Model, our impact on the local economy is $1.6 million. We are one of 3 similarly sized organizations in Dundas when you include the Carnegie Gallery and the museum, and you don't have to do particularly complicated math to see how important culture is in Dundas, and you don't have to go a whole lot further to start to extrapolate to what this means to Hamilton Region as a whole. We budget carefully. We benchmark our programs. We align our programs and operations to meet industry best practices. We are constantly evaluating our offerings to be as fully sustainable as possible. And we love our new facility, made possible through the Infrastructure Stimulus Fund and with support of the City of Hamilton and this community. However, our costs have gone up since reopening, and we are still very much in the phase of understanding fully what our new old building requires. For us to grow and meet the needs of our community, we do need additional support. And if you look at the numbers, $5,000 a year more would allow us to give 20 more scholarships to children, or it would allow us to run a monthly series of artist, curator, or art history programs free of charge to the community. $10,000 would allow us to do a film festival for families for free, or a series of 6 concerts in our loft space. $15,000 is all it takes for us to do a major outreach initiative working with a social service agency to bring art to an underserved community. $20,000 is all it takes to do a 3-year touring program of 10 to 15 local schools, reaching countless students and providing original artists' work in their space, something that our evaluation shows basically gets approval that's straight off the charts. Those programs are complete with curriculum guides for faculty, artist talks, and workshops. It's well established that for every dollar spent on culture, there is a spin-off effect of between $7 and $75 for the community. Culture is the new manufacturing. We attract business, we attract and retain residents, and tax bases grow when culture thrives. Culture makes communities competitive and sustainable. And throughout history, the cultural sector has required support. Today, I would like to thank you for the support the city has provided over the years, but I ask that the levels of support are reflective of our real costs while recognizing how much we give back. I am asking that you help us sustain our operation as well as grow to meet the needs of the audiences we are here to serve. And again, on behalf of the Dundas Valley School of Art, thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Any questions to the presenter? Councillor?
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to thank the Speaker for making the case for arts investment as a form of economic investment and economic development so ably. I think it's an argument that we need to think about a lot more seriously as a community. How investing in the arts is an investment in job creation and economic stimulus for the whole of the community. And on a very personal note, I know the Dundas Valley School of Art is a good investment. I have no visual artistic talent myself, but as a kid I was registered to do painting and sculpting at Dundas Valley School of Art, and even though it didn't make me into an artist, I can certainly say that Dundas Valley School of Art played a very key role in making me an appreciator of art and a participant in the arts community to the best of my ability to this day. So I owe you a debt of gratitude, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Claire. We appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you.
Next presenter is Tricia Leclerc, chairs of the Arts Advisory Commission respecting the 2015 budget. Tricia?
Looks like everybody's engaged in something else here. Okay. So for the purpose of new council and for those returning, my name is Tricia LeClaire and I'm chair of the Arts Advisory Commission. And this is an appointed citizens group responsible for advising City Council on arts achievements and issues. I'm here on behalf of the Commission to advise you, our City Council, to support the recommended funding increase of $500,000 for the Arts and Festivals stream of the new City Enrichment Program as presented and supported by Council, well, not supported by Council, but presented by John Hertel and supported in terms of considering for the 2015 budget. Council has been aware, actually, since the term of 2006, closer to the end of the term of 2006 and 10, that arts funding has not been effective. We have the Arts Advisory Commission, before my time, engaged in two events, major events called the Big Picture and the Bigger Picture, where arts community representatives were engaged with discussion and were given the opportunity to give input in terms of what was working and what was not working in our arts community. This Arts Advisory Commission had the foresight to do this, and the message from the arts community back then was loud and clear, was that arts funding is poor and the current funding program was not fair or equitable. So then we came back to the council and we said, this is what we hear, and council turned around and said, go forth, put together an arts funding task force, put a working to group and come up with a plan. So we did all this research, and the Arts Funding Task Force was a group of volunteers that were representative of the arts industry. They were specialists in their field. They spent over 4 years researching, consulting, facilitating meetings, meeting individually, meeting groups, to come up and working with Hill Strategies to come up with the right information to find out where Hamilton was at in terms of arts funding. And with that 4 years of work, 4 hours, 4 years, the Arts Funding Task Force came back to Council and we came with a recommended approach to strategic municipal investment in the arts. And then Council said, okay, great information, we hear ya. Now the information needs to go forward to city staff, and they need to direct and work on a report that will be reported back on the details, including implementation, budget implications and impacts, and provide a range of options. So then, and meanwhile, another pivotal event was the cultural plan. Another activity and an important document that was approved by Council or supported by Council was the cultural plan. And this document outlines some key recommendations that say we need to recognize culture as an essential tool in city building and plan for culture in our community, invest in culture, develop and facilitate cultural programming, recognize and celebrate achievement in culture, leverage culture as a tool in downtown and community rejuvenation. That's just a few of them, but those were the ones that obviously relate to the arts. But it's a bigger proposal, or it's a bigger plan than that for sure. So the City Enrichment Fund recommended, when John Hertel came back and reported, he recommended some changes to the program, which we're really pleased to see. We see that there is the city staff have worked very hard in redesigning and revamping the old city community partnership program, and but we're at this one last juncture. We're at this one last point in the whole process, and we need that money, $500,000. So we're here to see value. We are here to make sure that we see that you support the arts and culture in the community. You've done all this work so far, as Stephanie alluded to, but we need the rubber to hit the road. So we're asking for you to support this $500,000. The Arts Advisory Commission believes the amount is a fair request. Although our original ask was $1 million, we sought out the advice and listened to council, and we felt that a compromise would be to reduce that amount this first year and ease into a 3-year term of phasing in $1 million. But we're most important right now getting this $500,000 kick-started for this year, for sure. And we know that a new term of council would be challenged at best with budget matters. Hamilton Arts Community is a driving force, attracting visitors, families, business, and funders into this great city. The effort needs to continue. Todd Hirsch, the author of The Boiling Frog, a Calgary-based chief economist, was recently quoted in the Globe and Mail saying, "The economy needs a strong cultural scene because it helps to attract and retain labor. This is especially important for cities to draw smart professionals from around the world. The best and the brightest workers are global citizens, and if they're not pleased with cultural amenities, they won't come." And apparently they need transportation as well. So I would bet $1 million that the reason why we have the Junos here is because we have a thriving arts community here. I would bet $1 million on it. And wouldn't it be great if we could say to all of the people that come here March 12th to the 15th that not only are we a thriving arts community, but council supports the arts. And that they back us. And they back us because we can say that they've given us $500,000 to help improve the funding that is available, currently available in the city. So,
Trish, please.
Pardon?
I've given you a couple of extra minutes. Can you just wrap it up, please?
Oh, sorry. I did time it, but I kind of got off track there. Feeling a little passionate here.
No problem. I understand. Thanks.
Can I just say, though, that it's not just downtown, it's around town. It really is not just downtown, and the Arts Advisory Commission would be happy to meet with each and every one of you to see where your cultural needs are and arts needs are, and work with you to try and see how we can help revitalize that, just not only in downtown Ward, but all around town. Thanks. Sorry.
Hey, Trish, appreciate it. Trish, we got one
Yeah.
Councilor
I want to thank Trish. She introduced herself as representing the Arts Advisory Commission, which is the body that advises our council and has for, as she went over the timeline for the last 4 years, kept us apprised and advised on how this whole process has played out. And yes, quite clearly articulated today, it is now in our hands to make this crucial investment decision during this 2015 budget process, as we promised we would do. And as you know, I'm very supportive. I also want to thank Mr. Deputy Mayor Trish for her devotion not only to the bigger cause that is citywide, but also the Hamilton Children's Choir, who are just one example of hundreds in the cultural scene in this wonderful Mecca that the Junos just love and are returning to, as you noted, made our city proud worldwide. So congratulations on all of that. And finally, I would suggest that you, as a Ward 8 mom, if I'm not mistaken, probably talk to your friends and neighbors up there. And certainly it's a different art scene than down here or Dundas, as our previous delegate made us all proud about the School of Art. What do you get from your neighbors when you talk about all the hard work that you and others have done in this community as it relates to the investment in arts and culture?
Well, within my community, where I live, everyone's very supportive. And in fact, it's a growing, it's kind of a reciprocal thing. I was thinking about this the other day, is that we were doing that video, you know, and I not only do work downtown, but I do work in Ward 6, and I do work in Ward 8. I spend all my money in Ward 8, actually. And so, but everyone is very excited about the arts and culture because they see it as a critical piece to community building.
The monthly crawls are a great example, and a super example would be the annual super crawl as well.
Yep.
From all over the city, and everyone is embracing and enjoying and participating in whatever capacity, big or small. You're the latter. Great work, Trish. Always a pleasure, and thanks for a tremendous delegation.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Eisenberger.
Thanks. Thank you, Trish, for your great presentation. I too am very impressed actually with the grants funding process that's evolved there through John Artell and your work and council's work. Done a terrific job of kind of rationalizing how that should unfold in the future. It certainly makes a lot of sense, perfect sense, in fact, and I'm very supportive of where you are. But I did hear you say that that council should support the arts. I mean, it's not like, to be fair, it's not like we haven't.
No.
But this is, I guess, a top-up on the number that gives the kind of appropriate level of support going into the future. I'm sure that's what you meant to say.
No, it's not what I meant to say. But clarification, I got caught on that the last time, actually. But I think my colleague from Dundas Valley of Arts, the art schools, spoke to it already herself very well. And that it's not that we don't thank everybody for the support, but it needs to be grown so in order to maintain the momentum.
Right. So I think we're on the same page on that
yes,
one. I think that's
sure.
terrific. And you know what, to Councillor Farr's question, I mean, the reality is that arts isn't just downtown. It isn't just at the art gallery. It is all over our city. If you've taken the kind of the arts bus at some point in time, you get the pleasure of going into Dundas and seeing some great museums and cultural things happening there, and then off the Beach Boulevard, interestingly enough, where there's a number of other things happening there on the arts side. So it is really a citywide issue that provides benefit. And last point is, and I think you know this quite well more than anyone, is that it's an economic driver for our city in every respect. So it's part of our economic development drive. I think this feeds right into that. So I think your continued support of the arts and our continued support of the arts is going to make our city better, and it's also going to drive our economic opportunity in the future as well. Thank you for all your great work. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Trish. We appreciate you coming down today with the presentation.
Thank you.
Next is Tim Podesic, his Super Crawl cultural assets to support the community enrichment funding request in the 2015 budget. Tim, good to see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mayor Eisenberger, and Council. I'd just like to thank you to providing me this opportunity to delegate on behalf of the arts community today. I'd like to delegate in support of increased funding for arts. I've stood before you many times over the last number of years to lobby for an improved funding model for arts investment in Hamilton. The process has been long at times and hard, from calling the community to lobbying councillors, mayor, and city staff to get things done. The entire process has been over a 4-year period in the making. We are now into our second term of council, and the community continues to stand behind their desire for a new funding model. The increased funding request is before you to consider, and based on the years of community consultation, city reporting, external reporting, and the hundreds of community advocates who have a strong desire to see this through, we'd urge you to approve the request. Not even a year ago, Council approved the Community Enrichment Fund, a new model that improves efficiency for the community and city staff, but also establishes a model with strong governance and accountability. Continued improvements to this fund are required. One of those improvements is to increase the base level of funding offered to the community. The community is far outpacing the current investment model in scope and magnitude. The model itself is designed with an increased investment built in, and the last thing the community would like to see is the model partially implemented. As you know, over the last number of years, the community has grown leaps and bounds. It's one of the main economic pillars of Hamilton, and I think it deserves the respect, being recognized as one of Hamilton's major economic drivers. Just as one example, Supercrawl, of which I run, had over a $10 million economic impact last year. And we are not alone. All of the large organizations in Hamilton provide multi-million-dollar economic impacts to the city of Hamilton year over year. The arts community in the city of Hamilton are poster children for economic stimulus. From large organizations all the way down to individual artists, the arts community is an organic community unto itself that is continually striving to be self-sustaining and vibrant. All levels of the community work together to create the sustainability. The vast majority of press coverage Hamilton has seen is based around arts. This press coverage is helping reshape the image of this city Once considered only for manufacturing, Hamilton is now seen as a diverse, robust city with considerably more to offer its citizens and tourists. The arts community also speaks clearly to the vision that Hamilton City Council and staff follow in daily due diligence to make this a great city. The best place to raise a child, promote innovation, engage citizens, and provide diverse economic opportunities. Arts are one of those four pillars of the city, that the city's revival, that speaks directly to this vision. This is a call to action. In conclusion, my point for all council to consider is pass the increased investment of $500,000 in the budget before you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Councillor Farr.
Thanks, Tim. Great presentation. One of many over 4 years. Appreciate it. 8 to 10 million annually with Supercrawl is an economic impact. That through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. That's official from the Ministry of Tourism and Culture.
That's
correct?
right. Yeah.
That's translates on your one weekend a year of your growing festival to full hotels across the board, full restaurants, running out of chicken, half of them. Just a whole lot of extra employment and activity throughout that weekend. That's what that 10 million is through you?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. We had all the hotels in Hamilton were sold out that weekend. All the restaurants do a tremendous business. We do business surveys of all of the businesses on James Street North, James Street South, King Street, Main Street, all within the core. And I can unanimously say that anybody that's in the restaurant or retail business is tremendously busy that weekend and does a bustling business.
And to bring it all home in terms of the investment that you and others obviously are hoping for, and that we start with the $500K and work in over 3 years to the annualized $1 million, which was ultimately requested from your Arts Funding Task Force and others, and bring it home as an investment piece through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. You rely heavily, just you're one of the hundreds of arts and culture events and organizations in this community that is one of the four pillars of sustainability that I agree with, as you mentioned. You rely on municipal support, and without municipal support, you've said to us many times in the past, you don't get provincial support and you don't get federal support. Is that correct through you, Mr.?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. With $80,000 that's given to Supercrawl, we lobby that money, and over $340,000 from the province, $135,000 from the federal government, $250,000 from private investment to get our budget, plus our actual income that we earn during running the event from vendors and whatnot, will be over $1 million budget this year, and we could not have done that without $80,000. So if you look over the period of time that we've been invested in from the City of Hamilton, when we started with a $4,000 investment and a $30,000 budget, in 7 years we've grown to have an $80,000 with a lot of lobbying and help from my counselor, a lot of lobbying to get that dollar figure up to $80,000, but now we're at $1 million budget. So imagine what could be done if we're funding other groups in the same way, and the amount of money that can be captured through the provincial and federal government and private sources.
Right. So just one, Mr. Deputy Mayor, just one example, just one event, one cultural event that turns over 10 million in economic impact as per surveys from the source, the Ministry of Tourism and Culture. So if you're going to make the investment argument, this one's pretty much textbook. Much appreciated, and I look forward to working with you again this year on Supercrawl. Thanks for all you do, and the rock and roll real estate and all that I just recently read about as well. And that private investment you're making in the area where we've built up, we didn't even talk about what Supercrawl and the art crawl and the scene on James North has done for real estate investment and assessment growth in our city. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, and I think that's the argument that I'm looking for, and I appreciate all the positive things we talk about, where the hospitality industry does well, the restaurant industry does well, vendors do well, artists do well, and there's experience. But when I ask residents the question, and this is why I've asked you and others to help with that communication, because I support what we're doing, but we're not communicating very well. The first question comes from the community wherever you go is, so you're putting money out, you get a $10 million return, how come my taxes haven't gone down?
I'll actually have, through the chair, I'll actually have an answer to that question, which I don't have the the specifics right now, but I have asked city staff to provide me with the tax revenue benefit on James Street North from 2006 to 2015. And I can tell you not only Supercrawl, but what our crawl has done to that street, I'll be able to deliver a number to you as to what the tax increases from business are. And I can only estimate at this point, but they would be astronomical.
I think that's the message that we need to because when you go to community and just keep our taxes down, all you do is giving people money, keeping money, what's the return? We really haven't made that argument. You can make that argument from a topical point of view that it's a great experience and it draws people into the community and into a geographic area, but I've never been able to really substantiate the other part. The 10 million, but when you talk about 10 million, it's okay. Well, if you generate that kind of money, how come my tax is going up, not down, or it's stagnated? So I think the argument here is let's make that case and help us so that we can get more of those dollars released to the arts community. So that would be helpful.
Through the chair, I could actually be a little bit specific because I do own a number of properties down there, but I can speak to one specifically at 118 James, where the tax rate when we purchased that building was under $10,000, and now it's at $33,000. And I have a full building with fully tenanted that is vibrant, and I'm making money from it. The city's making money from it, and this is just one property on James Street North as an example. So that's why I say I can only estimate what the actual full dollar figure would be, but it would be a big sum.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tim. We appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you.
The next up is Craig Burley, respecting the 2015 budget request for the transit projects and aspects of the 10-year transit improvement plan. Craig? Got Craig here? No? Okay, if he does come in, we'll put him at the end of the list. Okay. Next is Keenan Loomis, President and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. Keenan?
Thank you very much, Council, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor. I thank you for this opportunity to weigh in on the significant matter pertaining to the budget of the City of Hamilton. As President and CEO of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, I have the privilege today of speaking on behalf of our 1,000 members that employ over 75,000 people in this community. Created in 1845 and this year celebrating our 170th anniversary, the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce is Hamilton's first institution launched by this city's founding fathers to provide leadership in city building. And what a great city they and all the municipal leaders of our first century built. And I am excited by the opportunities we have to be great again. To do that, however, we need proper resources. When evaluating whether to advocate for increased resources, we weigh five principles. First, does the tax levy remain competitive with comparative cities across the province? Second, we encourage the City of Hamilton to facilitate policies and initiatives that help shift the commercial residential tax base towards commerce. Knowing how difficult that endeavor is, however, we think there is a significant opportunity in aiming to meet and surpass our intensification goals under the Province of Ontario Places to Grow Act. Can we grow the pie by intensifying in already serviced land within all of our cities' downtowns? Fourth, the City of Hamilton should approve enhancements that facilitate economic development and business support. And finally, the City of Hamilton should support investments into projects that improve the quality of life for residents. In the 21st century, and for so many peer cities that are in the same life cycle as Hamilton, quality of life does equal economic development in the 21st century. The bottom line in our expressions of support today is, do the new expenditures keep us competitive with other jurisdictions, and are they targeted and strategic such that they are likely to yield a return on investment this year? We believe that Hamilton is at a crossroads. On one hand, according to our recently commissioned Economic Outlook report in collaboration with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, the outlook for Hamilton is bright. The city will expand at a faster pace than communities in its broader region and is set to outpace the provincial average in terms of employment gains. We are helping bring the province out of recession. However, we are currently projected to have 750,000 square feet of commercial real estate, and the appropriate levels according to our population, is 1.5 to 2 million square feet. Similarly, we need to increase our intensification from 1,750 residential units a year to 3,300 recommended by the Places to Grow policy of the Province of Ontario. Over the next 30 years, the city is expected to grow and achieve a population of 660,000 people with 300,000 jobs. What are the investments we need to make right now as a community to ensure that we meet those goals? Our first recommendation is our low vacancy rate means the Planning and Economic Development Division is expected to generate substantial project completion and business attraction strategies to meet the needs of the regional economy, while at the same time supporting the needs of existing businesses. However, from our conversations and interactions with staff, the division is currently understaffed, leading to 30 to 40 active files on each planner's desk, OMB grievances, and a limit to our economic growth. The enhancement request by the Planning and Economic Development Department will move City Hall towards ensuring satisfactory services are provisioned with the appropriate turnaround times to businesses in Hamilton. We know that where many of the bottlenecks are within the City of Hamilton, and these requests are targeted to make improvements exactly where they are needed. For example, engineering staff review and improve service and gradings for site plans, including coordinating and implementing technical requirements from other agencies and departments. The added staff will improve turnaround time. We also know that the waterfront represents a tremendous economic revitalization opportunity for Hamilton, especially in the area of brownfield remediation. As we heard from the former mayor of Pittsburgh, Tom Murphy, at the Hamilton Economic Summit in 2014, the waterfront industrial lands were the most significant catalyst for leading Pittsburgh's rise from industrial collapse. However, these projects were only made possible by effective facilitation and investment attraction strategies from the municipal government. Related to that, to another enhancement request pertaining to our new initiative in attracting foreign direct investment in immigrants, I'm happy to join other business leaders in participating in the new Global Hamilton Council. My experience has reaffirmed the need for the city to solidify a full-time equivalent role in its arsenal to serve as a point of contact for these emerging opportunities. Additionally, we are supportive of other requests related to the one-stop shop services offered at City Hall. Within those requests for enhancements, I want to spend specifically some time talking about Open for Business and the request for a coordinator. Currently, the resources for the Open for Business initiative have been seconded from existing departmental resources. However, as city staff move to implement the various initiatives, support Council's Open for Business Committee, and undertake a comprehensive review of our development approval process, this work cannot be sustained. And we're already seeing that. The Open for Business review process is stalled. The last Council Open for Business Committee meeting was well over a year ago. There has been no selection of a chair for this term of Council. There's been no update from the City on progress related to the scores of red tape hurdles that need to be addressed, and there's a complete lack of public engagement and outreach to the business community. Various other Canadian municipalities in our review have allocated significant resources towards Open for Business initiatives, not only in terms of tangible process improvements, but equally important as a public relations exercise signaling the intent of a municipality to attract and retain businesses. The funding of the permanent position would at the very least provide a public face for these initiatives to the Chamber and the overall business community. Our experience and engagement with Open for Business priority items has involved liaising with various staff across different departments, often running into silo phenomenon. In addition, this position would be able to liaise with various departments in cases where specific projects are delayed or are getting caught up in interdepartmental issues. Our third recommendation is for the arts community. We've had a number of people up here from the arts community today. They do amazing work. And we know that the arts community has done extensive consultative and research work over the last 5 years, leading to a recommendation for increased funding for the arts that we wholeheartedly endorse. The Chamber is fully behind the sentiments of so many of the findings in the survey provided by the Hamilton Arts Council Funding Task Force. And our leadership has long recognized the role of arts and culture in our belief that quality of living is one of the biggest economic assets in our city. It is widely accepted that municipalities have a role to play in providing consistent and sustainable funding for the arts community. The current regime of funding has a piecemeal project-based funding approach, with Hamilton ranking 7th out of 8 cities on funding per capita. The Community Partnership Fund has remained at approximately $3.2 million since 2000. The needs of the community have understandably grown during that period, even beyond inflation. The allocation of $1 million phased in via the City Enrichment Fund will go a long way in creating a stable and collaborative arts ecosystem in Hamilton. Without new funds, the only way that one organization can increase its allocation is at the expense of another arts organization. This has created a divisive and destabilizing dynamic between our organizations. Those are the 3 recommendations I'm talking to you about today. I'll be back at some point in the very near future to address transit. We heard from some colleagues from the McMaster Students Union. They were spot on, and I will elaborate on those comments at some point in the near future. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Keenan. We have Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. Did you read the article that was out recently called Rust Belt?
Yes.
Did you get the essence, what they were talking about in regards to Portland, Oregon? And I guess they went the Richard Florida model, creative class. And right now, Portland, Oregon has got the highest unemployed, educated youth in the country. So clearly something's gone wrong. What would you think that is?
I've never been to Portland, Oregon.
Okay, so
I wouldn't.
The reason I'm asking the question is balanced approach. So I guess my concern in a balanced approach, I mean, and this is economics, is that you have transference of wealth, which is a lot of your commercial kind of stuff, or your arts, and you have a creation of wealth. You can put the arts in that category as well. But creation of wealth is bringing money into the community. Transference of wealth is just shifting money within the community. And for a community to be sustainable, you have to have creation of wealth. So here's the question I have for you. When I take a look at everything you've talked about, I haven't seen any focus on that front, the creation of wealth in this community.
I think all of these were pertaining to strategic investments that we make right now that ultimately do lead to the creation of wealth. We heard from many of the people from the arts community that the investments in their organizations do yield return on those investments. We know as well that investments in planning and economic development that were made during Mayor Eisenberger's first term also have yielded results. The enhancements that we're advocating for here are just more to that so that we can yield more in return.
Okay, so I'm talking about the Maple Leafs, the Navistars. I'm talking about. I haven't heard a lot from your presentation that focuses on that front, and that was my point.
Well, we know that economic development, through you, Mr. Chair, the $2 million that was allocated to economic development a long time ago did yield the Navistars, did yield the Maple Leafs, and I think one of the recommendations is to add 4 new staff within that regime. So I think that would just increase our capacity to do that very thing. I think what we have to understand, and I know ECDEV is understanding this as well, is that how we do economic development in the 21st century has changed from how we used to do economic development. And so when we're talking more about quality of life now, it's very difficult for us to compete against the South Carolinas, the Tennessees, for example, that are throwing millions and millions of dollars to companies, to large manufacturers. And it's difficult for us to compete with Western New York, which is also throwing a lot of money at new companies. And so I think what we need to understand is where are we not competing? And I think within the quality of life within this community, Hamilton is surviving and is succeeding because it's a great alternative to Toronto city living, and people are flocking here all the time. And because we have authenticity and we have this history that we've been building for decades upon decades, that's our competitive advantage. And so we need to continue to invest in that going forward. That's how in the 21st century we're going to be a great city again.
So the concern I have, and I think this is a visioning exercise, is do we want to be a bedroom community or do we want to be a community that generates wealth?
I think we can be both. I think that ultimately if you're looking at meeting our intensification needs, and I always wonder why aren't we focused on bringing 100,000 people into the lower city? I think we can easily accommodate it, and the lower city is already serviced. I think that there's some updating and services that will be needed, but I think generally we understand that brownfield development or development on currently serviced lands is better than greenfield development in the 21st century and over the long term. And so we have to be focused on those particular endeavors, meeting our intensification needs, for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, and I appreciate your presentation. I think we're a chamber has been and continues to be positioning itself in the city to be an economic driver and to continue to grow revenue. So I really appreciate the approach here. The one area I wanted to focus on was your recommendation number 2, which is open for business coordinator. So coming back, I understand that we're close to a final report on the open for business problem, if I could characterize it that. So I'd want to give credit to the committee for getting us that far, and hopefully coming forward with a report that will identify what we need to fix to be truly open for business. So are you then suggesting that once we land that we then look at an open for business coordinator, or are you meaning to drive issues now?
I'm speaking specifically to the enhancement request made by economic development within the budget that's currently on the table. We know that open for business needs more resources, needs more time, needs more attention, needs greater collaboration among the various departments that are impacted or are implicated within the open for business review. And I know specifically, as a result of many interactions I've had with city staff, that there are a lot of silos and there is not a lot of coordination being done at the highest levels, and with council not meeting, the Open for Business Committee not meeting, there's not a lot of pressure to do so and to collaborate. Specifically with regards to the website, for example, we know that planning and economic development is enhancing and improving the systems that basically do a lot of the work that needs to be done. But we also know that there's very little collaboration going on between the people that are implementing those new systems and the people that are launching the new city website. And at some point, they're going to have to mesh seamlessly. And I don't know if I'm expecting that when the city's website launches fairly soon, that there will not be a business part that will be functional at the time.
Okay, so good point, and I certainly kind of put a lot of hope and faith in the upcoming report that will identify the problems. I think then we have to drive towards solutions. So completely, I think we're on the same page on that one. I think we have been for quite some time. It would be just great to finally get to where everybody wants to be, which is to be truly open for business. And I'm sure you're there as well. So I take your point. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Keenan. Much appreciated. Christina Heaton.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this opportunity to present this narrative. I think this is good. This is good right there. My narrative goes not quite as structured as the last speaker, but basically how the budget should be structured, in my opinion, to make Hamilton's transition be a showcase of urban development, not only in the GTA, but in the global arena. Having run for office in Ward 2 recently, I became familiar with the needs and dynamics of the city. I walk, ride my beautiful aluminum bicycle, and occasionally drive, and sometimes take the bus, but I've found in navigating my way around this town, the bump outs that restrict traffic flow are extremely dangerous. Upon retiring, I jumped into community activities like the participatory budgeting process and discovered all the true elements existing with regards to poverty, crime, and poor transit. Realistically, out of approximately 1,000 people, only 26 people voted for the bike lane. Not an accurate representation for the city. Wilson Street westbound, which I walk all the time going to the gym, has no traffic. I'd like to move the mobility corridors from Cannon Street, where all the congestion is occurring, particularly when the Pan Am Games arrive. It's going to be a nightmare. I'd like to see that corridor move to Wilson Street and then connect certain alleyways to be people-friendly. We'll be seeing the advent of many more e-bikes, and there is a need for dedicated pathways. Niagara-on-the-Lake communities are allowing pedestrian and scooters on the same pathways. Another point, atmospheric carbon levels have caused havoc with our climate, and we need to consider our part to change that. I would like to see improvements in our overpass infrastructure along Burlington Street to possibly have a continuation of a road go over the harbor or somehow around it. St. Catharines is a good example. Microplastics, mussels, and many other toxic pollutants have compromised the health of our waterways and our lands. Since we are on the elbow of the GTA horseshoe and an industrial port city with some great work done in the environmental fields, we should do and could do more in recycling efforts, thus creating more jobs. In my view, the heritage people and upscale developers do not meet with a palatable convergence of ideas. With the extremely high numbers of people that need specialized housing that is affordable, we need to designate how areas are developed. We cannot put the entire social services network, methadone clinics, health and dental buses, etc., working in the core on every corner, all serving people for free, and then expect to be market-driven for condos. To blockade access to the waterfront and expect community children to play together in the streets, to me, makes no sense. The number of halfway houses with pedophiles, etc., demonstrates this danger. The roadways need to create smooth vehicular movements to mitigate levels of toxins. If the air is red, will you send your kids out there to play? People love their vehicles and are usually in a hurry, so I would like to see more angled parking to accommodate the lifestyles of today. Businesses need more parking spaces directly out front, not 15-foot wide sidewalks. I walk it all the time. I'd like to see some of Hamilton's heritage brought ideas maintained, for example, supply merchants with awnings, bring an element of bringing it all together to protect pedestrians and festival goers. Work with other levels of government, and this is a thorn in my side, to create work programs and volunteers for inmates. I know I'm a bit hard on this point, but paying them, I'd like to see paying them a small honorarium, using a real bank account, and teach them the values of money management. Many ex-drug people are eager and willing to help work on projects to build their own housing in places where other people won't tackle it. We need to enable these people to contribute more and feel self-worth. Feed a man a fish, he eats once. Teach a man to fish, and he will manage. As I said during an opening prayer for City Council almost a year ago, I do see Hamilton rising like a phoenix out of the ashes. I see Hamilton emerging as a great steward of innovative thinkers as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christina. We appreciate it. And any questions? Being none, we appreciate you coming today. Next speaker is Richard Gelder. Yeah.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council, staff, and guests, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to address council about the budget for 2015. I will state up front that I am here in defense and in promotion of public transit, and I will try to keep my comments relevant to the budgetary issue. But I am passionate about public transit, even though I'm not a regular user. I prefer a bicycle. Yes, even in this weather, but I do have a relatively short commute. At the outset, let me clarify a few things. I live in Ward 13, known to us locals as Dundas, and have for 17 years. I am employed, gainfully. I am a secondary school teacher, which I believe even qualifies me as a professional. I have children, 2 of them in fact. I apologize to those who might be confused by the fact that I don't exactly fit the profile of the average bus nut. I firmly believe that the state of public transit is a barometer for how we are as a city. And there are many who feel as I do, that we need a viable system of public transit as we aim to reach our mission as a city, as the best place in Canada to raise a child, promote innovation, engage citizens, and provide diverse economic activities. Our system as it stands is reasonable. Yes, reasonable is the best adjective I can conjure to describe our transit system. Indeed, there is room, nay, an imperative for improvement to public transit in our city. We are fortunate to have a blueprint for transit in the form of the 10-year plan. Whether it's enhanced rapid transit corridors, new buses, or working with Metrolinx towards light rail transit, the time to invest is now. Esteemed councillors, transit matters. It matters not only for those who have no choice as a function of economic reality to take the bus, but also for the creation of a vibrant and sustainable city. Because we are falling behind in Hamilton. Car travel is still seen as the default option for getting not only to work, but just around the city. This in a world with finite resources, where that is a reality, and where climate change constantly looms. I see this every day. During my 4-kilometer bicycle commute westbound up Governor's Road in Dundas. In the opposite direction is a massive traffic, most of which is comprised of single-occupant vehicles. Up close, I taste firsthand the fumes of a city crying out for better transit. Because there are alternatives. And make no mistake, Council, there is a need for transit, even in Dundas. If our councillor would take up the challenge and ride transit to City Hall for even a week, she would see that the morning buses are packed. Packed with people heading to jobs in the core. Packed with students heading out of Dundas towards programs of choice in high schools across the city. Packed with people making a difference in choosing a mode of transport other than the private vehicle. But transit remains an essential, even life or death reality for many people across the region, and not just to a few urbanites in the lower city. We have an aging population that needs access to medical appointments. We have those students who, school boards are on increasingly limited budgets, are insisting take public transit if they want equitable access to programs of choice, such as French immersion. We have people with disabilities for whom DARTS isn't always the most available or even the best alternative. And yet, public transit in Hamilton, in particular, suffers from a stigma. At what point did using public transit become déclassé? It is a way of getting around in not only larger cities like Toronto and Vancouver, where gridlock is ever present, but cities similar in size to Hamilton. As an example, we are light years behind Ottawa, where light rail transit has been present for a decade and is being expanded as we speak. Why is there a perception that transit is for poor, lower-class people in the lower urban part of the city? And at what point did public transit become unsafe for young people? Why do parents go so far as to forbid their adolescent children from traveling to parts of our great city using public transit? This is completely foreign to my own experience, growing up in Stony Creek, where the King 1 and later the B line became my lifelines to the public golf course at the other end of the city and the athletic facilities where I trained at McMaster University, and even to the now extinct downtown movie theaters. This is a backward vision for a city that fashions itself as ambitious. A failure to invest in transit infrastructure is the opposite of a city that is the best place to live in Canada, to raise a child, promote innovation, engage citizens, and provide diverse economic activities. Friends, please embrace the 10-year plan, starting with the 2015 budget year. Enthusiastically seize every opportunity that the province and Metrolinx provide for modernizing public transit in Hamilton. Be the agents of progress that commuters in this city so desperately need and richly deserve. Members of Council, thank you for the opportunity for hijacking this budget process, at least for 5 minutes anyhow. Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you coming down. Any questions? Being none, appreciate you coming, Richard. Thank you. Next speaker is Kathy Stonehouse. Kathy? Kathy Stonehouse? Okay, she's not here, so we will put her to the bottom of the list in case she comes in. She might be late, so, all right. Cynthia Tuck. Yeah. Same, in case they come in, we'll announce their name again. Larry Pomerantz. Larry?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry Pomerantz. I'm the chair of the Hamilton Civic League. We are followed by approximately 2,400 people on email, 1,600 on Twitter, and a whole bunch of people like us on Facebook as well. This is my third or fourth year coming to council, and I can honestly say I don't think I accomplished a lot in the previous years. I'm going to try to stay very focused this time and see if I can get something done. In the 2014, we conducted a values and priorities survey. We had 3 issues that related to the police. I'd just like to share with you some of the results of that. 80% of our community feels safe, and we owe credit to the police for that. On the issue of police compensation, 38% thought they were compensated fairly, 36% thought it was high or too high, and 21% didn't really know anything about their compensation. Last year, I prepared a presentation in relation to the chief coming forward asking for $1 million in tasers, $1 million for tasers, and for, I believe it was $635,000 in training. The game changed here on that day because the chief found $1 million in another budget. And my experience with that is that it shook my confidence in the police command of the budget. He came to ask for $1 million, and then shortly later, he found $1 million. So in 2014, he found that $1 million. He still needed, I believe it was $635,000 for taser training. But what hit me there is that he already has tasers. He must already have a budget for taser training. I really didn't understand where this additional request for taser training was coming. But my presentation is not about tasers. It's really about the police, the chief's command of the budget. On December 15th, 2014, Chief DeCare issued a budget recommendation, and that budget recommendation is number PSB 14119. In this document, on the first page, he requests a 2.95% increase, and he also is requesting 6 additional full-time employees. On the second page of this document, the chief is requesting $4.3 million additional dollars for salary contingency enhancements, including those 6 full-time employees. It is the $4.3 million on which the chief is claiming we have a 2.95% increase. Further in this document, on Appendix A, he shows a request for $377,000 for salary staffing additions. But didn't the chief, wasn't he looking for $635,000 the year before for taser training? I'm at a loss why it's as low as $377,000 now when it looked like he was asking for $635,000 just for the tasers alone. So my question really is where is this $377,000 figure coming from? Also on Appendix A, there are increases to employee benefits that total $445,000. That figure, $445,000, is not reflected in the 2.95% increase. When you do add it in, The increase is stated by the chief himself in this document as 3.35%, or $4.85 million. On the final Appendix D, under the heading of expenditures, there's a row entitled Compensation Contingency. Earlier, I told you that the chief requested $4.3 million for 2015. But on Appendix D, it's noted as $7,494,320. One line below that, the chief is also requesting another $235,530 for part-time wages. Based on these numbers provided by the chief himself, it appears as if he has overstated the budget by approximately $3 to $4 million. One of the issues I have with this document is it's not set up like this document. Here we get what the 2014 actual is and what the 2014 restated is and what the 2015 budget is supposed to look like. We don't get that in this recommendation from the police. So anyone who's new to the Police Services Board has no idea of what went on previously. That information doesn't seem to be here. So for the record, I'm calling upon council to authorize an external audit, not internal, but an external audit of the police budget. And also for the record, I'm here today to say that I'm willing to pay for that external audit, so there won't be any shouldering of this by the taxpayers. It's time that we have a very transparent and accountable budget from the police, and the only way we can get to that is through an external audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate you coming today. Any questions? Councillor Whitehead.
Larry, I want to thank you for coming in. I mean, your presentation, there's some, I don't want to get into the actual numbers. I've been watching and studying it very carefully. What I do appreciate, though, is it's a significant budget regardless. And that being a significant budget larger than the library, which is independently audited, it's time that we bring the police services budget under the same scrutiny. So thank you.
Thank you. We know other speakers. Oh, Councillor Ferguson.
No, thank you. Welcome, Larry. And what I would suggest you do, as I was listening to you rattle off your questions, I can answer most of them, but I would suggest it may be prudent delegation for the police services rather than wasting or maybe wasting money on an external audit of your own money as a very offer. But I think most of those questions could be answered very succinctly. There is already an external audit done of the police services by KPMG, auditors for the city of Hamilton. To untangle, because the balance sheet is consolidated, to take that balance sheet and bust it up for police versus the rest of the city would take. The transactions are tested by KPMG. Our own internal auditors responded to inquiries similar to yours, very significant questions. They went into a lot of effort to review it and advise this council that there's nothing that we should be concerned about. Budget. So I just think, the whole taser thing, there's a very simple explanation for that. So it'd be appropriate, I think, because you're asking some questions that the public should hear the answers to. Come before the Police Services Board, ask those questions, and 99% of them will get answered on the spot for you, just so that you feel comfortable.
You, Mr. Chair, I'm not overly concerned about the taser issue. This document, there's a salary contingency fund. That's because, as I understand it, the police don't have a contract in place. So we're padding that for when their contract gets approved and they can receive those funds. The contingency fund on this document, supplied by the chief, had a value of $4,455,000 for 2014, and now it's $7,494,000. And in this exact document, he states he only needs $4.3 million. These numbers don't add up. They're not presented properly.
Okay, and I encourage you once again to come before the Police Service Board. Now, we will not give you, and nor can we. I think you're intelligent. I understand we can't play to the association what we've got in our budget. But I can tell you the Board of Directors was comfortable with the number that we had in there because it is explained to us in public. But no, we haven't had a collective agreement now for 13 and 14, and now we're into 2015. So we're actually settlement done, and we're in intense negotiations with the maybe going off to interest arbitration. Don't know yet. They've requested it, the association. Now to look at the other comparables around the province. That's what the arbitrator will do. Look at those as to what we should be reserving, because we don't want to come up short should the arbitrator make an award. But we will not and cannot disclose to the public yet, until the collective agreement is settled, what those reserve funds are used for in the wake of the. So please come before the Police Services Board. Ask those questions, whether it's tasers or whether it's benefits or, the reserves. You're not going to get a solid answer on that, because it's confidential yet for good obvious reasons. But all your other questions, I think, can be answered.
And through you, Mr. Chair, if I know there's a chance we're going to go to arbitration, and I know the concerns that council has with that, because councils don't often win in arbitration. But if we're going to arbitration, this is the time to go with an external audit to be fully informed of what's going on with the finances. So again, that offer is there to pay for that. If we're going that way, we need that information anyways.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you coming today and your presentation. Councillor Marilla?
Just for the record, we can't make that decision. From a jurisdictional perspective, it has absolutely nothing to do with us, and I encourage the gentleman to go forward to the Police Services Board and discuss accordingly with the appropriate level of governing body. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
I want to clarify one comment. The external audit KPMG does, it's what's called a consolidated audit, and the city board is just one small piece of the overall budget. 9% of it is spent on the cities. So I want to make that distinction, that the difference between a completely external audit versus a consolidated audit is that there be a greater level of focus on the police services budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Larry. Appreciate it. Next presenter is, hope I'm saying this, Saveva Juliuson. I hope I got that right.
Close. I know when it's coming, because there's always a pause. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, esteemed members of City Council, colleagues, and friends of culture. My name is Svava Juliuson, and I'm here today asking members of council to make a commitment to the future of Hamilton by voting to adopt the $500,000 budget enhancement for the arts for 2015. For those of you new to this chamber, I am a citizen of Hamilton. I'm a practicing visual artist and a consumer of what the arts community in Hamilton delivers. I'm also an active volunteer and serve as the board chair at the Hamilton Artists Inc., also known as the Inc. You might have seen the great coverage a few weeks ago in the paper. We were on the front page of the Spec and on the front page of the Go. As coverage for two terrific exhibitions, one which features McMaster graduating students, exceptional McMaster graduating students, and the other exhibition is by McMaster alumni, so it's great also to have listened to the McMaster students that were here already. But for those of you that aren't familiar with the Inc., it's located on the corner of James North and Cannon Street, and we'd love it if you'd all come for a visit, and we can show you around the exhibitions, tell you about our many programs and the terrific partnerships that we've recently developed, for example, with the HBO, the Spec, and ArcelorMittal. The Inc. has been in operation for 40 years, and it is one of the oldest artist-run centers in Canada. The Inc. is the cornerstone of contemporary art presentation in Canada because of the tenacity and generosity of its artist members and the willingness of its highly professional staff all throughout its history to work for next to nothing. And I said this last time I was here, so it may be a repeat for you, but if we're talking about wealth creation, part of what we want to do is not necessarily to create a whole lot of wealth, but we want to be able to pay our staff, and part of our mandate is to pay artists. So every artist receives an artist fee or an honorarium that exhibits at the Artist Inc. that same spirit of generosity is true for the many organizations represented here today, whose futures depend on an investment from the city by way of stable support and increased funding. The Inc. accomplishes all that it does, which is dizzying at times, with 2 part-time staff members who work for a salary that is at or below the poverty line. They are educated professionals who provide the administrative and artistic infrastructure so that we can deliver what the core of the Inc.'s objectives, which is to provide support to artists at all stages of their careers by serving as the conduit through which artistic expression and research can engage an audience. The Inc. relies on support from public and private funders in order to fulfill its mandate and realize the exhibitions, projects, and community events that are on the schedule up until 2015. One of the really exciting projects that we have coming up is called Feast, and it's on March 5th, Thursday, March 5th. And it is a micro-funding dinner so that there are artists that present a project that they're working on. Folks come and buy tickets and are fed dinner. They then receive a ballot to vote on the project. So it's direct sort of funding that evening. We hand an artist funds to carry through a project. What we at the Inc. and what the arts community in Hamilton needs today for you as esteemed councillors to vote in favor of the $500,000 budget increase for the arts. By saying yes to increased funding, you become the builders of a healthy and dynamic city, and you will be known as the role models for future municipal leaders, as you will have laid the groundwork for a legacy that positions Hamilton as a world-class city of culture. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And is there any questions? Seeing none, I appreciate you coming today. Thank you. Lindsay Goddard.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Goddard, and I'm here as a resident and mainly as a person who regularly uses transit to go to work to speak to the HSR's 10-year local transit strategy. What I want to talk about in particular is the budget request for money to improve the customer experience. This includes $16.5 million for branding and marketing, and it includes $22.5 million to improve customer information and amenities. And this is things like Presto customer service, improving transit amenities, and offering real-time data. And so before I speak to this, I would like to acknowledge, as I think Mr. Dixon did in the 10 years transit strategy, and everybody does, that the best way to improve the customer experience for the HSR is to invest, is to improve the service. So I think we have a lot of people out here tonight who have recognized this. I think the staff at the HSR have recognized this. We all know this, so we know that we have to improve the service. It's really vital that we make that investment. But taking that as a given, as a bus rider, I do think that we do have a great opportunity to improve the rider experience through things like better marketing, better information, and better amenities. So while I really support this, what I want to bring to your attention is that if we're talking about improving a customer experience, it's really important that we have that conversation with the customers. So my request is that council ensures that if we're talking about, if we've got a budget for marketing, if we have a budget for information, that this isn't going to be a one-way flow of information, and that we're going to have a conversation between the users and the HSR. Because I think that engaging with the riders, or with people who could potentially be riders, is really, that's the best way to improve the experience. So getting feedback from people who ride the bus. It's really important for high-level things like route and service improvements, but it's also really important for the little improvements we're talking about, the improvements in amenities and the experience, what we can call the quick wins. Because I believe that there are things that it doesn't matter how many best practices you have, there's information that you can only get from the people who are on the bus every day. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, the example that I'm going to use, and I ride the bus to work every day, I work at McMaster, I'm going to talk to you about my pet peeve about the bus, which is the decals that cover the back windows. I'm sure that there was a good reason for them to come, but pretty much every bus in the city seems to have them. And the problem with these is that means that if you're sitting at the back of the bus, you can't look out. And if you're on a route that you don't know, you can miss your stop. I've missed my stop. So you don't want to go to the back of the bus, so you're standing at the front of the bus trying to look out the window. So there's seats at the back of the bus that people aren't in. The bus is more crowded. And, a lot of us are having conversations about transit, and it's this little thing, these bus decals, that I think most riders would agree if we got rid of these or we modified them in some way, it could just make a really quick, easy difference to the user experience. And if we're talking about spending a lot of money on branding and on changing the buses and redoing them, keeping these things in mind, like being able to see out the bus windows, or maybe inside the bus where there's space for 10 ads, we have a lot of public health and service ads, and this stuff is really important, but why can't I go in there and see that Soup Fest is coming, or get an ad for Supercrawl or for the Winona Peach Festival or the Ancaster Fair? So these are the things that you think about when you're sitting on the bus and looking out. So, and they don't seem like, they're not the huge deal. We do have to make that big investment in overall service. But as a rider, I think that we can really have a conversation. And if the HSR is going to be investing, and I really hope that we are, into things like social media and providing real-time data, is that there will also be a way for them to get information from us, the users. So thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have a question from Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Chairman, and thank you for your information. I appreciate that you ride the bus every day. I'm sure it's the B line. So just a couple of points, and I appreciate the points you've raised. The advertising, I have spoken with our Director of Transit previously and current with regards to taking advantage of the space that we have on transit and certainly maybe revenue generation. So I appreciate that input. The decals, I know what you're talking about, and I believe one of the reasons, I'm not going to say for sure it's the reason, but one of the reasons these decals were addressed as putting on the windows of the buses is because of the graffiti that was caused, and this kind of eliminated that and created a different ambiance on the bus. So I know that was one of the issues and reasons for that. And I'm sure the buses that you've ridden, though, will have because it's under OADA that we're required now. I think it was a lawsuit that the city went through. We have the visual and the verbal stop announcements, correct? So you're aware of that as well. I just want to be sure so the public knows that that's on all of the buses that we have in the city of Hamilton, and I have had the pleasure of driving on them, riding the buses many times, so I know they're there, and I appreciate the points you've raised. It's certainly encouraging staff. You know that on the decals, as far as advertising the bus, that is revenue that HSR does amass over a year, so it is good news in a way.
Well, that's it. There's always, always acknowledge there's always a reason for it. But I think maybe in a case like this, we could come up with a solution that is a little bit more customer friendly. I know it's never that simple or easy. And the other quick point I will make is, I've really enjoyed the stop announcements on the buses. But as a rider, I would say we're still not at 100%. There are technical difficulties sometimes, and I can't say that I can always hear it, but there have been these great improvements. So,
and that's what I want to
acknowledge them. Yeah.
So our director is here, and he'll certainly take that to heart, and we'll do what we need to do in addressing it. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lindsay. We appreciate you coming. Councillor Green, hang on, Lindsay. Hang on.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think it is a very valid point brought forward from the presenter that anytime you're undertaking, marketing and advertising, that you make sure the stakeholders and the riders clearly are present to that conversation. They're able to tune you into things that perhaps management or drivers might not quite pick up. So I certainly hope that that's something through you to Mr. Dixon that is considered. I think it's a low-cost way of consulting and getting real-time feedback in terms of how we can make those improvements, especially the quick-win ones. You know, the ones that don't necessarily cost a lot of money. It seems there's probably a long list of things and recommendations that can be brought forward that would help improve the day-to-day service. So through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Lindsay, I appreciate you coming and sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. Next speaker is Sandy Leland. Sandy?
Hi, it's Sandy Leland, and I'm kind of short, so this is kind of high. But what I want to talk about today is the $5.5 million that was in the Spectator for snow removal. I'd like to see that spread out around the different things, different areas in the city, transit being one of them. Another $1 million going towards transit. I ride the bus every day, well, almost every day. I'm living in poverty. I'm a mature, well-educated woman who's living in deep poverty, and I have to go by buses. So buses are extremely important, and they're overcrowded. King Street and Barton Street are crazy overcrowded. So more money going in there, more services, and then maybe send some out to the outer areas, because I like to go hiking, and I would love to be able to go into some of the other areas where I can't get to now without a car. You know, the EMS, we need these people because they're going to save our lives. They're going to save lives of our loved ones, our children, grandchildren. And if they're so far behind, then they could use an extra $1 million added to the whatever they've got there, the 1.9 million, and hire more drivers, more paramedics, and have a couple more ambulances. So instead of waiting 10 minutes, you might have to wait 2 or 3 when you're having a major heart attack. This is to make this community, this city, much safer and much better. In social services, I'm on disability, I've been through welfare, and a lot of the problems, I think, is in overworked caseworkers. So another $1 million to them to hire more caseworkers, at least lessen the load in the welfare department, and maybe the recipients will get a bit better treatment out of that, and their workers aren't so overwhelmed with all the problems that they're hearing on a daily basis. That leaves $2.5 million left. I would like $1.5 million to put into food gift cards to be handed out to people on OW and ODSP halfway through the month when we're pretty much broke because everything's gone to rent, to bills, to some groceries, to transport costs, because we have to buy bus tickets. Nobody can afford a bus pass on disability. And $1 million, I would like to see that go to the Good to Go food box for singles on welfare, and that would include them getting bus tickets when they go to pick up their groceries. This is healthy food. I get mine through the Friendship Center on Ottawa Street, so I'm okay. But to be able to go out and pay for this, it's not going to happen. It's just too expensive. And singles on welfare have the least amount of money, and if they're living in city housing, they have even less money to live on. And this way, they get halfway through the month, they get some healthy, nutritious food and a bus ticket to get home. And even if they have to walk. And they could actually, you could have centers spread across the city. So some for downtown, some for the east end, the mountain, the north end, all over, so people don't have such a long, long way to go. And they could still use bus tickets for whatever. That's it. Thank you.
Sandy, really appreciate your points of view and you coming and expressing your views today. Is there any questions from the council here? Councilor Partridge?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to say that you spoke beautifully, and I really appreciate you coming down. What you've said is very, very important, and I'm glad we had the opportunity to listen. Thank you.
Well, maybe you hear me again. I'm part of Speak Now. I've been part of the roundtable since the beginning, and now I sit on Speak Now as well. So.
Yeah, well, you did an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you, Sandy. Next is Damon Starr. Damon here. What they say is, come on down, Damon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor, honorable councillors and staff and guests. Thank you for taking the opportunity to hear me speak. I've come here today, and I had originally planned to sort of bombard you with stats and data and nonsense that you've heard over and over and over again, I'm sure. And I prefer to come to you simply as a resident of this city, a father of 6 children in the East End, 2 with disabilities. And my story kind of begins 27 years ago when I joined an organization, a grassroots organization, that at a time when Hamilton was in the same situation it is now that we see with transit. And our city was trying to build a highway, a north-south corridor through the valley. And at that time, there was many debates, and an ongoing, I'm sure it even goes back further than that. But in the late 80s, we had the opportunity to put a highway in then to move commuters north and south. I joined an organization called the Citizens Expressway Committee with Art Fruin, Irene Holland, Mary Wiebe, and I was very young, and I was probably the youngest member there. And at that time, it was very clear and apparent that if we didn't do something, that traffic was going to be chaotic, beyond chaotic, I think, along Centennial Parkway and Kenilworth access. And furthermore, those communities were severely impacted by the traffic that was already there. And so therefore I joined this organization because my motivation, 100%, was to free up that commuter traffic in order to rebuild our communities in the lower mountains specifically, or lower city specifically. But again, I was much younger, and I don't say that we made any mistake in doing so, but what I see today happening on the on the east-west corridor is very similar. We have communities that are impacted by traffic, and I know today it's not there. But the data shows that as growth happens in our community, as we encourage growth, that this will happen, and transit, mass transit, is the only way to resolve that east-west. You can suggest that transit can be implemented across the city and upper and lower, and that is very important. But it's got to start somewhere, and my belief is that it's got to start where the need is and where the economic benefits will show the most, and that right now is in that lower city. So it's not a debate, I don't believe, about upper and lower city. I believe this is strictly about need, and I believe that it starts now, and it possibly started 27 years ago, and this canvas is not necessarily clean. It's an ongoing process. And so I would encourage this council to look at its budgeting numbers, support the HSR, its funding requirements, to free up the communities that are impacted, to introduce new transit to communities that are underserviced, and do that from a social and economic position. I think we're all mature enough to suggest that that would be appropriate. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me today.
Thank you, David.
Taking the time to listen to me, sorry.
We appreciate it. Councillor Wyatt?
Thank you for coming forward, and I absolutely agree. We have the Rapid Ready report, and I think we need to be committed and dedicated to the funding of that report so that we have a robust transit system for the whole community. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Mayor Eisenberger.
Thank you, Damon. Thank you for your presentation. You make an excellent point. Now, when you're so you did focus on the lower city specifically. And so, what in your mind, what did you have in mind in terms of the transit improvements that you would think would be a positive step for the city to take?
Like Councillor, through you, Deputy Mayor, but as Councillor Whitehead commented, I believe that the reports that are in place need to be funded. They need to be supported. So that is a balance. Though that support comes in the form of funding. And so what I would like to see in the lower city is support for improved transit, dedicated bus lane to begin. In the move for an opportunity for an LRT system to be put in place in the lower city, specifically the B line. That's the beginning. And then from there, as the report sets out, that can be expanded, and that's what we should be doing.
Thank you. So you have read the Rapid Ready report?
Yes. Unfortunately, in my mind, at this time, just to be clear, is that it's a very summarized version up in my mind.
But your understanding of the report is that it actually asks for two things, essentially. One is an LRT investment, and then the other is an expansion of the system as a whole.
Correct. And I do believe that is exactly what this council, I understand there are new members on council, so I don't know how to speak to that particular issue, but I believe that in 2013, this council supported that unanimously, if I'm not mistaken, and it supported it with the understanding that there would be funding from the province. And I think the advantage also, Mr. Mayor, through Deputy Mayor, I think also that we have to understand that there's a Ontario government in place currently that is very supportive of mass transit. They have done that through their commitment of funding, and I believe that Hamilton is in a position right now that suggests that funding is available, and we should be doing everything as a community and as a council to get that funding and put it where it belongs, and that's per the report, the Rapid Ready report, that this council unanimously supported. There really is no room for debate because that report is in place, and if the province is supporting it with funding, then I don't believe there is an alternative.
Thank you, Damon. Apparently you've been playing pretty close attention, so I appreciate your points. Thank you for your interest. And you know what? I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we have Councillor Green, Damon.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you to Mr. Starr, I think it's interesting, an interesting point he brought up about the 27 years ago having a conversation around mass transit, and we know what the opportunity cost was to drag our heels on that and what could have been. And we know that we also had the opportunity in the 80s to have mass transit in the city, and we did not. So I think it's an interesting perspective that we have a resident here reflecting on that. The recent completions of the Red Hill, the revisiting of the LRT, it's very timely reminder to us on council at the opportunity cost of not taking these types of investments seriously and acting on them. So through you, I thank you, Mr. Starr, for your presentation, very methodically kind of laying out the historical context, the social and economic needs, and certainly hope that you continue to stay as engaged. Thank you.
May I speak to one more comment to Councillor Green, through you, Deputy Mayor? Just reiterating that point about what we believed at that time that we didn't get it on in public transit back in the mid-'80s. We thought we got it on, but we didn't, because we got so focused on putting the highway through the valley that we forgot where we were at on transit. And I'll just say this, the Citizens Expressway Committee back then, we as a group, we understood that this was more than just a highway, and I know we're not talking about a highway, but we understood as an organization that it was a balance between the implementation of public transit and the moving of existing commuters from the community roads to a new regional road that went north and south. So we understood then, but unfortunately things happen and our focus gets lost. And if I'm doing anything today, I beg you to be focused so that we don't have to go another 27 years and have this conversation again. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Damon, and we appreciate you coming down today.
Thank you.
The next resident is Brandon Curtis. Brandon?
Damon, that's going to be a tough act to follow. So, thank you for having me. Spoiler alert, I do want to talk transit really quickly. I'll try not to take up too much time. I'm an engineer by training, so a lot of the decisions that we make in our office on behalf of our clients are emotionless. They don't create divisiveness, they don't create cohesiveness sometimes either, but at the end of the day, we just try and look at the system as a whole and analyze what is the best, most efficient, optimal solution, and that's essentially what I'm going to ask council do on transit. I'm going to be honest, I wanted to come up here and make a cheeky comment towards a particular councillor in the room that I've been emailing a couple of times over the weekend, which I think some of you received, and that's probably not the best way to get his attention. I don't think that anymore we should be divided on this topic. This is something that I realize amalgamation has created in terms of this transit area rating system, which I would like to see gone on my own level. But ultimately, I am asking that when you guys do make your decisions, that you don't think about what's best necessarily for your wards, but what is best for the city as a whole. And when you're making these decisions, you're going to be making them based on, I'm sure, commerce. You're going to be making them based on families, on children, on everybody. And I would hope that everybody in here sees transit as something more than just a way to get from point A to point B, but something that helps complete a regeneration of this city. Mr. Whitehead, you talked earlier with, I think, the gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce about wealth creation. I think transit can create commerce. I think transit can create wealth as well. Mr. Eisenberger, you had also mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, do I call him Mr. Mayor or Mr. Eisenberger? Your worship. Your worship. Mr. Eisenberger, you'd talked earlier about bringing people into Dundas. I can tell you right now, I found Dundas, I found Ancaster when I was a student at McMaster. I came here in 2005, and these are crown jewels of a larger city. Flamborough, which is a gorgeous farming community. I mean, each corner, including Ward 8, offers something to the city. And if people can't get to them, then how are they going to realize how great we are? And not only that, I think externally as well, how great are people going to realize how good we are if we can't even move our own citizens around? We have marginalized people taking transit. We have seniors taking transit. We have, and this is no disrespect, we do have special interests taking transit, sir. McMaster, Mohawk students, got people like that. And it's killing them right now to see delays, to see dithering, to see divisiveness. I'm going to stop with the alliteration now. But to see issues like this all over the city for 15 years. And again, I've only been here since 2005, and I would love to be part of that 1%, and an expanding 1% that Mr. Perez and Mr. Brodka talked about earlier for those who went to McMaster, stayed here. I'm not sure what the Hamilton or the Mohawk numbers are, but I'm sure they're possibly similar. But at the end of the day, I think transit is going to be a huge draw for people that potentially don't want to own a car. And at the end of the day, when these people are taking transit, they're thinking about getting home the quickest way, most efficient way, to see family, to see friends, to see loved ones. to hold their kids in their arms, anything that they can do to spend less time on the roads, which, by the way, is a finite resource, and more time doing what they feel brings some happiness in life, not to get emotional and contradict what I had said earlier. So I would ask that everybody starts thinking of transit as a system, not just a singular line, although I do support the LRT line. I don't think it's the be-all and end-all of what we should be doing. I would ask that we relieve the area rating for the transit. And I did note earlier in the tracks breakdown that we spend about 19.66% on infrastructure, transit, roads, and sidewalks. Those are going to be different numbers, but ultimately I would love to see those numbers optimized so that taxpayers and everybody can hopefully spend less on that stuff and more time worrying about other things. I think there was a $200 million infrastructure deficit floated around at one point in a presentation I went to, and I would love to see that gone. And I think, again, transit, complete streets, a lot of the special interest stuff, again, no disrespect, is going to be huge in doing that, and to help everybody in this room who I'm sure cares about their own wards invest more money in other things that matter to them. So, sorry, I just made that off the top.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. Councillor Whitehead.
Yes, Brandon, and I know we've been talking a few times on Twitter, and
yeah.
And one thing you'll if you haven't already, I have thick skin, so I don't have a problem with criticism. But the other side of that coin is that sometimes I challenge the convictions of others to determine my own positions,
which I'm sure has led to a lot of emotional responses
as
as well.
leadership to make decisions. So two things. One is that I absolutely agree with you that we haven't done a good job on the transit file in this community. Mm-hmm. But I think where there might be a difference of opinion is how, with the very little finite resources we have financially, do we address that issue? I suspect you support the Rapid Ready report?
For the most part, yeah.
So from my perspective, I want to see that implemented like yesterday as much as we can within the capacity. But I want to see it implemented in the way that's been laid out. And that's where we might have a difference of opinion. But I'm certainly, I just came from Mohawk College and consulted with them, and the biggest issue right now for the students up there is the lack of access and buses passing by for the students going to Mohawk College. So there's absolutely no question that we haven't done a good job. We need to make the investment. The question is, how can we do it in a comprehensive way that meets the needs of the greater community? And I think that's where there might be differences of opinion.
Well, part of the comprehensiveness of figuring out a solution, I'm wondering, and this is a question I'm going to pose to the remaining councillors here, if I may do so. How often does a Mr. Morella think about the issues in Mr. Ferguson's ward? How often does Mr. Green think about the issues in Councillor Vanderbeek's ward? This isn't me trying to challenge you guys necessarily, but to hopefully implore that you guys possibly think outside the boundaries of your own ward. As far as I know, you guys aren't paid by your ward citizens. You're paid by every citizen. And I do understand that you're politicians and you do have to seek election in your own wards and everything like that. But if we could all think together as opposed to what is just best for Ward 8, Ward 1, Ward 13, et cetera, I think that might help the process a little bit more. And I do understand you guys have taxpayers, you have voters to answer to, but I don't think anybody's going to complain if somehow we can optimize this transit percentage and reduce how much time people spend in their cars and optimize how much, or increase how much more time people spend with what makes them happy.
Mr. Chair, I really appreciate the sentiment and the sincerity you put forward. I firmly believe that it really is a value statement. Mm-hmm. And currently, when you got areas on the mountain that people have to walk in ditches to get to school and to churches, and other areas of the city they have sidewalks, that maybe we should deal with the fundamentals first, and that's a value statement. So it's not about getting in the way of the bigger vision, but we need to deal with the needs before we get to the wants, and we haven't done a very good job dealing with the needs.
Okay. Councillor Morella.
Sorry to name you first, Mr. Morella.
No, just quickly, just to clarify a number of issues. Firstly, everything that I think everyone does around this table, some more than others, will make a decision globally, but there's always a local impact. But with respect to my track record, whether it be the LRT, which is not fully supported by my residents, to be quite frank with you, and I'm a strong supporter of, or the expressway, which was not supported by my residents, but I was a very strong proponent of, or the casino, which a significant amount of my residents supported, I opposed. So sometimes optics or reality or perception prevails over reality, and I think that basically was reflected in your statement, and that's fine. But if you're going to say it here, I need to correct it. So you were incorrect. My decisions aren't always based on my word, but they're always based on what's in the best interest of the city and the corporation, and I've got the scars to prove it. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Councillor.
Duly noted.
Brandon, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down today and expressing your views.
Thanks for having me.
Next resident is David Smith. David Smith? Okay, so we'll ask David to come in at the end if we'll call his name again. Don McLean? Pardon?
Excuse me for interrupting, but he did say that he could be here by 6, so I've put him on that list.
Okay, we'll bypass him and we'll be asking him one more time at the end. Joanna Vasilevska.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Biljana Vasilevska. It's tough, I know, but thanks for the effort. Okay. I've been a resident of Hamilton for the last 10 years, and like a number of people here today, I would like to talk about transit. Transit, lots of people have mentioned, is a public good, but I am going to be speaking to you out of very selfish reasons. I've been living in Hamilton for 10 years. For the last 3 years, I've been working as a research coordinator full-time at McMaster University. And one of the things I found very amazing about this city, and something that I tell to all my family and friends when they ask me about Hamilton, is that we have really amazing access to nature. We've got conservation areas, we've got the Bruce Trail that goes through the middle of the city, and it's something that always amazes me that I can step outside my house, be outside for a couple of minutes, and be on the Bruce Trail. However, because I don't own a car for a lot of reasons that aren't relevant today, I find it very difficult to get to the conservation areas. And I understand that the conservation areas are, rural, so it's not necessarily going to be easy to get mass transit out to them. But what's even more difficult for me to deal with is the fact that it's really difficult for me to get to the built-up areas of the city using public transit. For example, in my 10 years here, I've never been to the Meadowlands. And I'd really like to because I'm a film buff and there's a great cinema there. There is a bus that goes there. However, if I want to go and see a movie on a Saturday night, in order for me to plan my return route home, I've got to know when the next bus is coming, and they're only every 45 minutes coming back into the city. And if I don't want to be waiting outdoors for perhaps 40 minutes, then I have to plan when is this movie going to end, and some of them have really long trailers and it's difficult to know. So it's easier to take a cab. Once the cost of a taxi is factored in, it's easier and cheaper and more comfortable for me to spend my money in Toronto. I take the GO bus to Toronto. I'll go to the major bookstores in Toronto. I'll spend my money in Toronto because it is just as cost effective for me to get to Toronto to experience a film as it is for me to get to the Meadowlands and back, or to get to the cinemas on Stony Creek Mountain. So while I would really love for there to be mass transit to get lots of folks out to the conservation centers and experiencing their majesty, I would really like to be able to see the movies that I like at the Meadowlands. I'd really like to be able to see the Greek tragedy that the Redeemer College students are going to be putting on in April, but that's not going to be possible unless I took a cab all the way out to Redeemer College, because there isn't transit to go out there and back. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate your comments. Is there any questions? Being none, thank you very kindly for coming out today. Next resident, Marcia Duncan. Marcia? She's not here. Okay, we'll call her name out at the end again, and just in case she does show up. Kenneth Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I have two quick comments to make. First of all, I think I want to tell you a story about my search for Tamworth pork. The Tamworth pig is an old pig, and because it's a very fat pig, nobody bought or raised Tamworth pork until people like the chef at the old mill discovered people really liked it. So I set out to find Tamworth pigs and found a farm near Jerseyville. And while I was out looking at this man's Tamworth hogs, I noticed a very odd sight. One of the hogs had a wooden rear leg. So I asked the farmer, I said, I don't understand. Why does this pig have a wooden leg? And he drew himself up to his full 5'7", and he pulled out his chest and he said, you don't expect us to eat a hog like that all at once. I think sort of that's a backwards comment about spending money on the LRT. Of course we can't sell or pay for the whole hog all at once. Of course we can't supply the whole city with rapid transit all at once. But I suggest that those of you who can afford to do so go to Denver, Colorado and see their LRT, which was built not all at once. But they're doing a wonderful job, not only in terms of moving people quickly and safely, but comfortably and with the good financial backing and budgeting. It's a wonderful, wonderful system. I've ridden on it, and you asked me how I can afford to go, because I have a son and two lovely granddaughters there, so I save my pennies and I go, but I ride their LRT. The other thing is that I agree with the people who said, as it said in the report, that LRTs help economic development. So I think it's a win-win, and all we have to do is bite the bullet and say, the reality is, folks, that we can only take the government money and spend what we can now. I also want to point out to you that a recent administration turned down funding for rapid transit in the city. That money went to Vancouver, and they built the SkyTrain. So don't turn this down, please. The other comment I want to make has to do with, I wish some of the arts people were still here. I drove this afternoon down, where did I drive down? King Street. I look at signage. It looks awful. I would ask the councillors to ask the arts people in the city for advice about how do we improve streetscapes in the city to attract tourists. Because right now it's not entirely attractive. We don't need pizza signs. We don't even need the Salvation Army canopy. people will find those places. We can have better signage. We don't have to tell people that there are bylaws governing signage. We can sit down with people and ask them to cooperate to make streets in Hamilton more attractive in their appearance, and I'm sure it'll work. And if we can't talk to the proprietors of such places, we can talk to the people who grant the proprietors licenses to sell the products. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Kenneth. And we have Councillor Jackson. You would like to ask a question.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So, Mr. Jackson, back to your LRT scenario.
Yes.
I was trying to listen very carefully now. On the one hand, if I interpreted correctly, you talked about don't throw away the potential funding that the provincial government may have out there for us.
Don't throw it away. Don't pass it up.
Don't pass it up.
Right.
On the other hand, I heard correctly, and I'm trying to reconcile this with that first comment, but we don't need to build the entire line all at once. So can you further explain what seems to me to be a little bit of a paradoxical position, unless I've misinterpreted, please?
Well, thank you. I guess it wasn't terribly clear. What I'm hearing is there are other parts of the city that won't benefit from the LRT immediately. So build the part we can build.
And knowing our city as you do, are you suggesting then, if we got the go-ahead, something like from the middle of the core, west to McMaster or east to Eastgate with a spur down to the new GO station on James? I'm just trying to further, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Mr. Jackson, understand.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the spur line, but that'd be a great idea. Yeah. No, what I was thinking of is there are people who are underserved as regards transit. And that's a fact. And all we can do is ask them, wait, your turn's coming, and make sure it does come.
Okay. I just never thought of the partial build, if you will, of an LRT. It's been presented as an $811 million check for the entire B line, and you've thrown an interesting new creative idea in there. So thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kenneth. We appreciate you coming. Next resident, Adrian Miladinovic. Adrian? You know? And next resident, Dave Barnett. Dave, please.
Thanks for allowing me to speak here. I'd like to thank my counselor, who's not here, for helping me set up this meeting. I've got two main issues I want to address. One is the lack of adequacy in shoveling sidewalks. It's resulted in my broken ankle for over a year now. Can't get proper treatment for it because the sidewalks weren't properly cleared. I spoke to a council member here that's present that says they don't shovel the sidewalks in Thunder Bay. At least we're not that bad. Now, I have to, with a walker, go down the street because most of the sidewalks are improperly plowed. You get them people shoveling at different times of the day. If you had a machine that went by, at least you could look out your front window and see, okay, the sidewalks are cleared, so they're going to be cleared everywhere, instead of going out for a couple blocks or whatever, a couple of neighbors' houses, and find one spot's not cleared off. Plus, where I'm living on Fairley Avenue, Delaware area, there's laneways there. When the laneways come out on the street, they cross the sidewalk. Nobody plows that part, so you have to cross that mountain to get by it. So it's not very effective when you see all the broken ankles year after year, or broken appendages that my girlfriend told me about last year that she saw downtown, everybody walking around in crutches. I don't think it's very conducive to have morale when people, the the disabled, older people can't get around, they're frustrated that they can't get around. It doesn't make a good environment for them. So I think it's worthwhile to spend the money to plow the sidewalks. You're spending money advertising for people to come out and clear their sidewalks, be nice, clear your ice or whatever, and you're setting up programs. If you use that money, the advertising money to plow the sidewalks, it'd be better used. But more importantly is the problem with the, you want to put cameras in buses because of a lot of bus assaults. I've been before Public Works since 07, a delegation request, 09, trying to have this addressed. The best I could come up with was that it was the same as other cities. When I've investigated this thoroughly through Public Works, you make a complaint, whether it was rude behavior by a bus driver or physically assaulted, like I have 3 times without provocation, the same response you get back is the appropriate action has been taken. You don't know what that action was, and from what I've heard with the sexual complaints that was made against Public Works, apparently people were getting accolades or whatever, recommendation for the work they were doing, the supervisors that weren't looking into the sexual harassment complaints within the HSR. So I have a problem with justice needs to be seen to be done. I've seen numerous people every day I'm out. If it's not me getting harassed like I was today, I saw somebody else getting harassed. I see people in walkers and wheelchairs, an old man with a cane that was being harassed by bus drivers. Other people are walking up and wondering, why is this driver doing this? It's not a good message to send. So instead of wasting the money on cameras in buses, if you had a proper complaint system that would seriously look into the problems, then you wouldn't have frustrated passengers that, like one girl did when the bus driver harassed me. She got up, threw her coffee in the bus driver's face because of what the bus driver did to me. This has been going on for 10 years for me. It's the equivalent of pulling the dog's tail, and if you have no recourse, what can you expect? So I would ask that I have solutions that I hope to address at a delegation request with the Public Works regarding getting a proper complaints process done. I've went through numerous layers, Don Hall, I'm trying to get through to Jerry Davis right now, and Dave Dixon even, and they basically just brushed me off. But it's a serious issue when you get all the assaults that you have on bus drivers, and a lot of it is predicated on the harassment by bus drivers on patrons. Did anybody have any questions regarding that, I hope?
Thanks, Mr. Barnett. We appreciate your coming out. And any questions for Mr. Barnett? Being none, we thank you very kindly. Next resident is May Toth. May, please. Yes. I have her in mind. Okay.
Thank you.
May?
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, councillors, also. I'm going to talk mostly both seniors and transit, and you must be tired of transit by now. I have lived in Hamilton since about 1970. I live in the Kirkendale ghetto. I call it a ghetto because I guess you saw this at the beginning of February in the newspaper, that lovely cartoon where we're all in fiefdoms. I got locked into Kirkendale when the bridge from Poulette that would have allowed me to get down to Main Street was eliminated. Now, since that time, each councillor that was has been in, has had meetings, talks with the railway. I used to watch that because my dog and I would travel and we'd see them talking to each other on the road. That never improved anything. So since then I've been in a ghetto, and it wasn't too bad because my job required that I have a car, so I was running around in the car, and here I'd also go into Toronto sometimes in the car. Anyway, that changed. Recently I was, this is an operation, I didn't fall, but that has illustrated certain points that you may or may not know. With the help of my doctor, I got temporary DARTS transit for some of my needs because I can't drive. I get the cast off later and I'll be driving again, thank goodness. But I had to give up going to the local community centre for my seniors exercising. Now, we're told that in order to keep healthy, you must exercise. Now, my dog takes me for a walk, but my dog is a little old fellow who goes very slowly, so it does not help my need for exercise. Anyway, I can't get to the rec centre. It's just too far, particularly in this weather. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about exercise. Anyway, that's it. So that and being stuck in the ghetto and not having decent transportation, because although I'm not that far, I'm at the end of Hunter, and that's not that far from downtown. Now, I could walk down to the plaza because there's no bus there. That plaza's been there since about the end of 1970s, and there still is no bus that takes you there. So I can't get to that, to Fortino's or to Metro with the available transit. I end up walking more than I ride on a bus. It's the same going downtown. And as I said, if I go to Toronto, I take a taxi to the GO station, unless I'm going to go down to Burlington Plains Road and they have a place I can leave my car. So that I don't think is reasonable, given I think there should be more done with transit. Now, another point about DARTS, it was very helpful. It only got me half of the places I have to go. I have to pay people taxis or pay somebody to drive my own car to get to the other places. But that's life. But one of the problems using either DARTS or somebody that's driving me at the moment is I live in a narrow street. It's not that narrow because it's Richmond is opposite the Hill Street Park. There's parking on the park side. But there's huge mounds of snow on the road where the city did the middle of the road. It's a relatively busy street. Every time the DARTS bus stops or a private car that's picking me up stops to let me get onto the to say I'm here and get me out and onto the vehicle, there's several cars honking their horns at all these things. Now, this didn't happen before those mounds of snow were there. That was quite reasonable, but I suggest that there are a few streets like that that might do well to get the extra snow removed as they used to be, rather than leave them till spring. There must probably other streets like that. I would also suggest that my place isn't walkable, partly because there's no way to get over the railway. This must be happening in other areas. I wonder if at your leisure, a little study of what happened in the communities where the bridge over the railway was removed, it might be quite useful. On a slightly different note, I'm an old healthcare worker. When the university student was giving his presentation, I listened to see what he was talking about in terms of healthcare students, and in my case also healthcare workers. He didn't mention them. And healthcare students and workers tend to work in a variety of places when they're in their clinical practice, whether they're doing a personal support worker course at Mohawk or a university healthcare professional, many different professions at McMaster. They don't always stay in the university getting all their courses and their library. They are out in the community interacting with patients. Now, that means that they have to get from one place to another. That means that they have more need of good transportation, or they're going to have to use the car. I could use a broomstick because they used to call me a witch because I'm a midwife. So I have that, but I don't have the black cat at the other end. So it's the broomsticks in the corner. But this happens to all healthcare workers and all students. They move around the community. One other thing about healthcare is in the building codes, please don't take away all the parking. I used to hate to go up to some of the buildings up the mountain and other places because they've got parking possibly for the particular residents, no visitor parking. Or maybe they don't have, it depends who has cars. But that means that the superintendent will let the plumber park over there. But healthcare workers who are trying to give home care to the people in these places can't always get parked. I used to sit in the office sometimes and somebody'd be saying we had to cancel Mrs. Jones' appointment because I couldn't park the vehicle. Now, that is a problem with both transit and also parking that you may wish to look at.
May you're way over your time. We're going to have to
Okay,
wrap it up.
that's really the most important things that I wanted to say. I'm quite happy. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much, and I don't know if there's any questions from council. Being none, we appreciate you coming up and expressing your views. There's a few people that we announced the names earlier. I think it's only appropriate that we try to call them out again, and I think there's about six or seven that we missed. So we'll try a second time. Craig Burley. Craig?
Thank you all very kindly. Councillors, for accepting my delegation request. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I wasn't here earlier. I was with clients in Toronto. The figures and other factual information that I present in my discussion here can be obtained from me by email if you wish, but it's all pulled from city published materials that you've been familiar with or have been distributed to you as councillors before. I've lived in the city over 20 years. I've been a transit rider that whole time. And I want to offer you, in consideration of the 2015 budget, some observations on the changes we've seen to the preferability of transit as an active choice. In the time that I've been here, unfortunately I can't, because there essentially haven't been any. And that's the level of progress that we're making, and the level of progress we're making in increasing ridership reflects that, down 2% since 2006. In the meantime, we've added we've added to the infrastructure deficit, and we're now at a reported $2 billion in infrastructure deficit. There's an interesting chart. It was recently released, the 10-year transit improvement plan, and there's an interesting chart on page 39 that's really relevant to your budget discussions. What it shows is that chart shows our performance at hitting the mode choice targets that were set the last time you, the council, set the transportation master plan. We've got a long-term target at 2021 of 12% of trips by transit. We're nowhere near from it. We're getting further. Ridership is shrinking on a per capita basis. And that 12% figure is interesting, and I want to talk a little bit about it. The number is why I'm here. The 12% number is why I'm here. And I'm making a pitch to you now on behalf of the city's drivers, the car users and drivers in the city of Hamilton. Why 12%? What about that? Why was the number picked out of the air by council? It was chosen, and the 2021 date was set. Now, council has shifted that to 2021 to 2031. But those dates and those figures were chosen because when the city last revised its transportation master plan, it commissioned a study. And it commissioned a study that told the city that by 2021, here's 3 scenarios for transit ridership and as well as other mode choices. And what that means for service levels on our main roads, on the Link, on the 403, on the Red Hill Valley, and on our downtown thoroughfares, amongst others. Right? If we hit 15% transit ridership and a couple of other mode choice targets, service levels on those roads will be good in 2021. That was what the city was told by its consultants. If we hit 10% transit ridership, that's percentage of trips taken in the city. If we hit 10%, service levels on those roads will be acceptable. If they stayed at 5%, which is where the level was at the time, service levels would be poor in 2021. Those numbers are right out of the consultant's report, 5, 10, 15, and the year 2021. So council, including a few of you here, decided, well, we can't do 15, we'll do 12. We won't commit to 2021. We'll plan for 2021 to 2031. We'll spread it out a little bit. We'll half a loaf it. You know, this is Hamilton. We have a tradition of half a loafing. But make no mistake, right? Those ridership goals were set. We have to get this number of trips being taken by transit to preserve road service. That's why those numbers were chosen in the targets. That's why the dates were chosen as they were. It was in the parameter of a discussion about drivers and our main roads that we're hearing a lot from drivers about. And so for all that, so we see, right? We see when we don't hit our mode choice targets, when we don't make transit attractive, drivers suffer. And yet for all that, when we talk about making service improvements to transit, and it's a discussion I'm really glad we are having. I am really glad to see a focus on service improvements and a focus on redressing improvements not made from Public Works. Despite the fact that many of the benefits flow to drivers, you're contemplating a token amount of that to be contributed by everyone else other than the riders. If you don't ride, it's not even a token. It's 60 cents a resident for 3 years, 20 cents a year. You can't buy a token for that. You can't buy anything for that. 5% of the contribution coming from the city, who are going to reap half the benefits of the $6 million that's been requested, right? These are your choices. The choices that have been made, 2006 to 2013, they've shrunk ridership, they're not growing it. You're condemning drivers to a poor level of service. That was what council was told, and council committed to its plan in order to avoid that future. So there needs to be a reckoning and a leveling with the drivers of the city, that you, without substantial city investment on behalf of everyone and not only those who ride, because the bang from the buck of a fare increase is much less in terms of driving those ridership numbers than $1 from general revenue. And where we're saying 5% can come from general revenue and 95% come from the riders themselves, you are, again, the result is going to be less service improvement and less ridership take up. And those ridership goals, again, set in order to preserve acceptable to good levels of service on our major roads. So you're condemning drivers to a poor level of service. They deserve better. I want to encourage you to match the fare box increases dollar for dollar from general revenue within the system for system investment. And that's what I'd encourage you to do. It seems like a worthy, if there is a fare box increase, it seems like a worthy goal to set to match it dollar for dollar. There are road service levels to improve. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Craig. And Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Craig. So Craig, like our Director Dixon, I'm sure you were aware, followed a couple of weeks ago when he presented the 5-10-year plan, talked about the correlation between enhanced service and the fares going up if people felt a corresponding service level increase. And I thought, boy, I'd love to have him with me at a town hall meeting talking about increasing fares.
I have those figures right here, actually, if you need them.
Yeah, so how do you feel about that then, please? Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you.
And Mr. Deputy Mayor, to address Councillor Jackson's question, the fare box increase can be, I think, a strong part of an overall future plan. There is no doubt, it is not something I say lightly. I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for Hamiltonians in poverty. They are a large proportion, if perhaps not the substantial proportion, but a large proportion, certainly comparatively, of those who take transit, and they're less able to absorb that increase. But we have a goal as a city in common to increase ridership levels. We need to do it for everyone. That's the plan that you set yourselves, the plan that has not been seized, but there is time to meet these targets. But there has to be, you'll never get there. What we see in the numbers is that half of the benefit of increased service level in terms of ridership is clawed back if it's from the fare box. Your bang for your buck is twice as much if it comes out of general revenue.
Okay, thank you. And how about Director Dixon's recommendation? 300 million should maybe be an immediate ask from the province and Metrolinx for 81 new buses and a new depot, with the longer-term goal of the 811 for the original LRT. Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Craig, since you're such a transit advocate, and we've seen a lot of your emails, Craig, thoughts on that two-pronged plan?
We can't rely on either service improvements or higher order transit like LRT in order to do the job of the service increases we need. We do need both, in my view. I think one is always tempted, especially in Hamilton, not to ask for too much. We don't want to be thrusting ourselves forward, ambitious city that we like to see ourselves. We also know that we can sometimes be the last one at the table at provincial level. Nevertheless, we can't get the ridership improvements that we say we need, that we've committed to, without both. So we need service improvements throughout the network. And for the group that I'm working with, Hamilton for Transit, we're looking to try to look at how that can be done immediately, more effectively, to make it a more effective choice. Not just relying on LRT as a magic bullet. It can't be. When we do have LRT, we'll need intensification to feed that cross town system. So in effect, I think both is a good ask. It is, to ask for both, for the capital funding for LRT, as well as for real funds for service improvement, I think is a positive step in a recognition that we haven't had the investment in the system to grow it that we say we need to.
Appreciate your responses, Craig. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to Craig. Craig, as always, you're very thorough with the information and the research that you've done. I thank you for that. The conversation on fares is an interesting one. We had that conversation through the 10-year transit strategy plan. And my question to you is this. It's a personal one. It's an anecdotal one that you can answer. Given the proposal, do you think we will, do you think that we will be better served to increase the service than the fares, or do you think that we could get away with increasing the fares without increasing the service at the same time?
Through you, Mr. Mr. Deputy Mayor. The issue with increasing fares first is you will further shrink ridership. You are in a situation where you are pushing away your core users. That in and of itself is a problem. The figures that were presented showed, for every 1% increase at the fare box, you are increasing ridership by 0.5 to 0.7, but you're reducing ridership by 0.2 to 0.5%. Where you are adding 1% to service, you're increasing service 0.5 to 0.7%. So you can see that provided you're increasing service, you're doing better even with a fare increase. Now, again, that's marginal, and it's sort of at where our current level is. That's my understanding of those figures. You're a lot better off going the other way, especially because you can then increase the fares once you have already increased the number of users in the system. That, when you look at how that works, right, if you increase service first, let's say we have an ambitious plan, right? We're going to increase service at 6 to 8% per year. We're going to go to the level of some of our competitors, in terms of municipalities, say where Brampton is, right? We're going to go 6 to 8% per year. You will then have, if you then delay, say, the fare increase by a year, you are then getting further benefit from having increased your capital first before you are bringing back that, you've increased your base. And so the marginal increases will bring more revenue. That's one reason why you would go that way first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is all, and I want to thank you again for your presentation, Craig.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, you take the chair. I'm just going to ask Mr. Birdie a question on the fare increase. It's almost like the chicken or the egg. Which do you do first? Because they want to increase service. Everybody wants that, and we know, that's number one. But to get that capital dollars, to get the trucks or the buses, to get the employees, to added gasoline costs, it all costs something. So you kind of like raise the levy, and you have to raise the fares at the same time to make that combination, to make it start. That's all what I'm hearing, and people. Some of the people that have come to me and suggested that the fare increase, they don't mind paying the fare increase. I know it's tough on them, and as you said earlier with some of the people, as long as they see the service increase, and that's what we're getting. So I just wanted those comments. So it's a matter of the fares and the levy, but we need to work together to make this happen and get it going quick.
And through you, Your Worship, if I may, to address just part of the comment there. I've been poor in Hamilton. I've been on welfare in Hamilton. It is the situation in which I would least like to contemplate this, and the situation where it would be most precarious. Nevertheless, everything in one's life is made more difficult if you can't get around. And I know what it's like to be highly dependent on transit. I think the willingness is there, the thirst is there to ride if I can do it. If I can get where I need to go in a reasonable amount of time. And I see that, and we're starting to see it from some of the data we're gathering. I'm hoping to be able to share that with you at some point to show that I hear from people that they want to take the bus more. That's a good sign, and perhaps with service intensity, even at a higher price, we can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take the chair back, and thank you very much, Councillor Whitehead.
First of all, I want to thank you for all the interactions on Twitter, and you've always been very respectful and solid in your comments. I really appreciate them.
Thank you.
Secondly, and I thank you for coming forward, and by the way, we're in the back room, but we're listening to the conversations. You need to know that, and I heard everything you said. I guess the big question for me is, and there was a report in the report, the Kitchener Reporter right now, and they put in some significant investment into their transit system. And they were looking at their ridership and how it's increased and what they attribute it to. And in fact, what it came down to is that there's less people walking and now taking transit was one piece, but they weren't getting people out of the car. They still hadn't passed that or got to that threshold according to their numbers. So the real issue is we do a lot of consult with users, which is important. The question is, how do we get to those that we want to be users? Any idea?
those who are currently driving and want to take transit, one aspect certainly is getting somewhere where you want to go. We as a family always drive to the Flamborough Family Y every Saturday. Our kids take swimming lessons. I can't get there on transit. It's an awesome facility and we love it. We want to keep using it, so we drive. But even that means, because I don't drive, when it's just me with the kids, it does make it more difficult to get there. And I would love sometimes, especially when the weather's good, and this is another factor, transit's going to be bad, ridership's going to be bad this year because it's been miserable. Sometimes it's never the nicest choice. But we want to make it a good enough choice often enough that people decide to do it. There are a number, one thing that can be done and one thing that I think needs to be addressed is the fact that there's a clear oversupply of parking downtown. We make it perhaps too easy. And again, I don't want to make things difficult on drivers, but there are choices the city can make at the margins to nudge. And that's unfortunately, in a way, what it has to be. You don't want to get into social engineering, and I appreciate that. But you want to be in a position where you can nudge people. Make the service better is the number one thing that will make people ride. Eventually, LRT will, in and of itself, make service better because people love trains. But we can't do that yet. We've got to find ways of working on it in the interim.
I really appreciate that answer. It is a challenge. My biggest issue is I want to get more people out of the car on the mountain so that we could do these great, wonderful things in the lower city without impacting on them and going the social engineering route. Yeah. The question is, how do I do that? So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you very much, Mr. Burley, and we appreciate you coming down today. Second time requested, Kathy Stonehouse. Kathy? Kathy Stonehouse? Being none? Okay, the next one would be Cynthia Tuck. Cynthia Tuck. Is she here today? Okay. David Smith. David Smith for the second time. Being none. The next one I see him very much. I see him up there. Don McLean, come on down.
Aren't it supposed to be cheers when you do that? It's supposed to be come on down, isn't it?
I still be here to get that early thing.
I want to change a few slides, so I can probably do it from here. Slideshow. Okay, and this is going to crack in.
Okay, we got 2 minutes left.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for your patience. I also want to talk a little bit about transit, but that's not the main thing I want to talk about today, because I assume that you've already heard some things about transit, and certainly from Craig and others, although Craig is the only one that I've actually been able to hear. I am, as many others I'm sure, concerned about the fare increase that's being proposed by your Director of Transit. A 24% increase for seniors, a 12% increase on the adult pass, $144 a year for an adult using the transit system. If they have someone else in their family, that's double. I don't know where people find an extra $144 when they're living on the margins. I don't think wages are going up by that amount, even if they are employed. So that's a really quite extreme suggestion to be raising the fares. But what's more extreme is that the investment in transit, which is being proposed by your director, 95% of it is being covered by fare increases. That's not going to get us where we need to go. And in fact, I think your director understands that, because he's completely abandoned the growth plans that the city has had for over 20 years. So in 1993, we adopted 100 rides per capita as our 2020 goal. In 2007, with the master plan and transportation, we were looking at 80 to 100 rides, and I think the year was 2025. We're now, according to the report that was presented by Mr. Dixon, looking at 50 rides per capita by 2024, and we were at 48 3 years ago. So this is not growing the transit system. We are the worst performing transit system in the province, in cities over 200,000, and we are going to continue to be in that.
Excuse me, can we let the person talk, please? Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And as the worst performing one in the province, and that was also acknowledged by your director, it's clearly not where we need to go, and we're not going to make the changes on the backs of riders. What we're going to do is drive riders off, and the numbers that were presented, and Craig talked a bit about that in terms of will the ridership go down as a result of fare increases like this. If I go back, and you can do this, look at some of the earlier reports that were presented by the earlier Director of Transit, and certainly the argument that was presented is different in terms of the numbers that what is being presented by Mr. Dixon. There was a suggestion that we would lose riders if we raised fares. The increase in service that's being talked about here is not an increase in service. It's really just fixing the problems that we have already. That may improve the situation for riders, but it's not going to attract much in the way of new ridership. So I don't think those numbers are probably very appropriate, but even if they are, this is not going to move our transit system into alignment with anybody else in the province. And we end up then in this big debate about LRT and BRT. We need, I think, as you understand, to deal with our transit system as exists now. We have to get that in order, and we need to get it growing in a serious way as other communities. So there's lots more I could say about transit, but that's not really what I came to talk about. I came to talk about the problem that was presented in your capital budget by Mr. Zagarek, and it's not a new problem, it's one we've heard about for a long time, and that is the enormous deficit in the maintenance of our existing infrastructure and what we do about that. And I think Mr. Zagarek suggested it's now approaching $3 billion. It's rising by a couple of $100 million a year. It's been doing that for quite a while. And while there's been a 0.5% increase in the capital budget this year, there's an acknowledgement that that's not going to really change things in any significant way. What I find interesting and difficult is that the discussion about this infrastructure deficit doesn't seem to have gone to the point of how did we get into this mess? Why are we in this situation? And we're not alone. Other municipalities are facing serious problems as well, although I suspect that Hamilton's are among the more extreme. But we really need to think about why we're in this position. And I would suggest that council needs to ask staff to look seriously at and present some assessment of how we got to this point, because I suspect what we're doing is we're continuing to dig the hole that we're in. And the first rule, of course, when you find yourself in a hole is to stop digging. And part of the reason I think we're doing that is if I look at the actual capital budget, and I put up the roads capital slide that Mr. Zagarek presented, and you see that growth projects represent a very substantial portion of what we're actually spending over the last 3 years. You did the averages, it works out to 22%. It's a little less this year, but those numbers aren't necessarily complete numbers, at least in my view. So, for example, those numbers for 2015 don't include the Centennial Rail Bridge project, which is $4.3 million this year and $15 million total. And that is clearly a growth project. It is being done for the purposes of benefiting a big box complex that was put in place at Centennial and the QEW. So not including that in growth projects, I think, is misleading. And I think if you go through the list, you'll find some others. And if you look at the list of what's coming down the pipes in growth projects, and these are acknowledged, I think, as growth projects, we have Dartnell Road in 2016, $4.4 million, the Waterdown Interchange of $10.4 million in 2017, several projects involving Rimo Road, which I suspect are closely related to the decision you just made, or just was finalized at the OMB with respect to the Airport Employment Growth District. So it doesn't look like there's a change taking place here. And in fact, by expanding the urban boundary the way we have recently done, we've committed to far more infrastructure being put in the ground at a point where we cannot afford to pay for what we have. So either we're charging too little taxes, and I doubt that's a message that you or most people in this community want to hear, or we've got too much infrastructure, at least per capita. And the obvious way to tackle that, or one of the obvious ways to tackle that, is to move in the direction of greater intensification and move in a much more aggressive way than we are now. At this point, we've committed to reaching the minimum target that the province has put forward of 40% residential starting this year. When you go back to the staff reports on what we could have done when those police bureau came into being and those rules were put in place by the province, we were well over 60% that we could have accomplished within just on the basis of what the staff was able to identify along major corridors. And we clearly have other projects that have come on and more coming on that are, okay, so you're pushing me for time, I can't talk. Anyway, you know my point there. And I think that's the only thing that I wanted to raise with respect to that. We need to understand why we're in this if we're ever going to be able to deal with it. And that's going to require some study. I suspect part of the problem may also be that we are running on Cadillac services. I know I cycle through areas that have been repaved over the last 3 or 4 years. Most of those roads were quiet residential streets that we don't want people driving fast on, and they weren't in that bad a shape, and cyclists feel it more, I think, than drivers do. So I'm not sure that we're making the right decisions in that way as well. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. Any questions from council? Being none, really appreciate, Don, you coming down and voicing your opinion. Marcia Duncan. Marcia?
I've got some props.
I haven't seen what this is, so if it's...
Thank you so much.
This is from... That's good. Thank you.
Great, Marcia.
Thank you. Mayor Eisenberger, Deputy Mayor Duval, members of council,
staff and media, thank you so much for letting me come and speak today. And I don't have my notes. Just a second.
Thank you for the cookies.
Oh, you're very welcome. The cookies aren't a bribe, but if it endears you to a better transit system, that's a good thing. So, I'm a hardcore transit user, and that's not a subjective moniker, that's a descriptive. In Ancaster in the late 70s, if I lived in Ancaster, I wanted to come downtown, I would take the Canada Coach bus downtown. I did the same thing when I went to McMaster University. Then when I lived in Toronto, TTC, I even took my hockey equipment to games and stuff on the bus and subway. Then back to Ancaster, and I started working at McMaster University. They had the Ancaster 16 that went down actually to the university at that point, and then became a smaller bus, a community bus in Ancaster, and then it would catch the 5C Meadowlands going downtown and down to McMaster. And around that time, in 2003, after the 2003 election, Don McLean will remember this, we went to our respective councillors to get better transit for our communities. So I went to Murray Ferguson, who was then Ancaster councillor, and he was really receptive. He said, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And he said, I said, come on and ride the bus with me. So we went around Ancaster. Your brother rode the Ancaster 16. I hope you do too. So we went around and we talked about the issues, and he got me this dandy sign that we used in 3 Heritage Days parades to promote transit, and it helped a bit. There weren't as many as we would have liked people. There's more now. When I go up there now, there's a lot more now. And now there's even the 5C Meadowlands goes up on the weekends. That's something I never thought I'd see. And now living in Hamilton, I live down near Ottawa and Maine. I work at McMaster University, so I take the bus every day to work. That's what I do. I've always take the bus, and before Bernie died, he asked me, don't leave the dog at home alone, please. And so, by and large, I've been able to keep that promise, because I go home at noon and I let the dog out, and then I come back to work, and then on my way from work or whatever, I stop at Fortino's, I'll stop at Canadian Tire. I'll use the Canadian Tire at Maine and Victoria rather than one at Barton, because it's on my route. In fact, I picked up the chainsaw to cut the shrubs, let the dog out, and came back to work. And so everything is along the route. It's at almost 55 years of age, I've just bought a vehicle, and that's only because I want to take the dog with me to places, or I want to take the shrub cuttings to the dump. But transfer station, thank you. But everything I do is along the route. And I've even gone to Gorley Park to play baseball. I've even taken the transfer to the Burlington bus. So it's not just the straight McMaster to East Hamilton route that I take. I've taken them all. If I want to get someplace, I have to look them up where to go. So I do that. So it's just what I do. That's how I roll. So I prefer the bus. I don't want to have to scrape my car off of snow or scrape the ice off. I don't know why people do that. It's easier for me to take the bus. The biggest problem is people think I'm a freak because I want to take the bus. And I can think of a whole host of issues why I'm a bit of a nutter, but taking transit is not one of them. So I think when we look at it, and everybody has great ideas of how to improve transit and why we need to improve transit, but the big thing is, until we start thinking that public transit is a normal mode of transportation, and it's not just an irritant or something to be tolerated, then we're already gridlocked before we're gridlocked. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. We have Councillor Green has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to Marcia. Marcia, I'm always, it's lovely to have you here, and I love to hear the stories you provide, a memory that certainly goes back well beyond my time in Ward 3. And, seeing that sign and seeing the recent reinvigoration of community organizing, I won't say activism, I know that, organizing around transit, I certainly hope to see that sign out with the transit folks in future days to come. And certainly, thank you again, and look forward to hopefully more cookies at future meetings. Thank you. They were delicious, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, the cookies stay, yeah.
Thank you, Marcia. We really appreciate everything you do. Last one that is written in, Adrian Aladinovic. Adrian? Second time? Third time? Adrian? Not here. So, being that, we were going to put till 7 o'clock anyways, and I think Councillor Green was going to put a motion on that for some people to just come out and if they have a chance. So I think we have a quorum here. So you want to put that motion on, Councillor?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you, if maybe you can ask if there is anybody in attendance who hasn't been on the list and who's been waiting patiently to delegate, that we do give them that opportunity. And if there's not, respecting that, I'm happy to leave it to the will of council.
Okay, so I'm going to ask in the audience, is there anybody who would like to come down to talk? Okay, hang on. So we got 1, 2. Anybody else? So we have 2 people that would like to make a presentation. Councillor Green? So you want to put a motion on to allow these people to speak?
Absolutely. I'd like to motion that we, if necessary, it is necessary, I'm seeing from the clerks, happy to do it, happy to go on the record to motion that we open the floor in this process to allow residents to unregistered residents to participate. Seconded by...
No, we need a motion, and Councillor Murda seconded it. We need a motion to talk to the clerk's office earlier. All right. All those in favor?
Carried.
It's carried.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we love the lady. We could just come down, please, and your name. And then we have Joey Coleman come in second, please.
I'm actually on the list. My name's Kathy Stonehouse. Sorry, I came late. Yeah. Oh, how many times did you call me?
Kathy, we called you twice.
See, I just thought I'd make an entrance then.
That's good. That's good.
Well, actually, I'll be honest. I was hoping you would run out of time, and I was really nervous. I've been at home watching the live stream on Joey. Yay! Publicrecord.ca. Anyhow, my name is Kathy Stonehouse, and I had a whole speech I was going to give, and I was going to rally the troops, and I was going to do all of these things. But honestly, everyone who went before me pretty much said the things that I wanted to say. I'm here tonight because my issue is transit. I am a relatively new Hamiltonian. I chose to move here. I had a car when I moved here, and I chose to sell it because I live in an awesome neighborhood. What up, Ward 2? Yay, Durand. Anyway, I take the GO train quite often. I have a bus stop right outside of my house, so I became a frequent transit user, and it's been wonderful. I haven't needed to get involved in any public discussions about anything in my city because I've been having a pretty decent time here until January 1st. A good friend of mine, who most of you know or know of, sorry, his name is Eric Cunningham. Thank you. He was a former MPP for Hamilton. Eric and I were friends and colleagues. He worked right down the hall from me at work and at the law firm I worked in. And Eric passed away on January 1st. And I figured the best way I can honor his memory, is to become involved. So, in the community that I live in and the city that I now call home. So the first issue, and hopefully one of many that I've taken up, is transit, because it affects me because I am a transit user by choice. So I got involved with the bus lane. That was my first thing that I did. I went down to the McNabb terminal, joined a bunch of citizens, and I was happy to see two councillors, Councillor Aiden from Ward 1 and Councillor Matthew Green from Ward 3, and it was encouraging. I wrote each of you individually emails to let you know that I am a transit supporter, and I was encouraging you to support the bus lane, and though many of you didn't respond, one of you wrote me a very encouraging note saying stay involved in the community. Thank you, Councillor Marula. And one of you, I won't name, wrote back something that was really discouraging for the first time ever engaging with city councillors, and I got back a really flippant email about how that bus lane would only increase transit time by 1 minute, and how would that affect my life, and how would that make my life quicker? And I thought, oh. So I wrote back my own little flippant response, and you know who you are and you know what you got, and it was kind of funny. Anyhow, basically, I was going to give facts and figures and all those things, but what I'm going to do today is simply use the rest of my time, if I haven't run out already, to please encourage you to not just dig in your heels and stick to the ideas that you already had before you came in, and please just try to open your minds up and take the bus line across the aisle this way, and hopefully know that there are people on the bus who matter, regardless of what ward they live in. We need to be represented, and we need our voices heard, and not to be dismissed summarily because of some political issues that went on before I even got here. So anyhow, I'm going to turn it over. I'm just the opening act for Joey Coleman. So I'm happy to see that there will be someone ending this meeting on a more informed note, but I just wanted to make my voice heard and honor my friend Eric's memory. Thanks.
Kathy? Just a minute. Is there any questions for Kathy? I just want to say we appreciate your bubbly enthusiasm and your personality. It's been great, and we're sorry about your loss that you incurred.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Mr. Joey Coleman.
Greetings, councillors. I'm here because I believe I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but I believe the principle of walk-on delegations during this meeting is worth me being a walk-on delegation for. I would suggest to relate this to the budget, that we not spend any additional budget on procedures, but that we correct this and go back to the procedure we had last year, that people were encouraged to come here and do a walk-on. Now, on the budget, I have a concern. We have lots of great vision statements. They're great statements, and we should be implementing them. In the 2012-2015 vision statement, which the majority of the councillors here today endorsed, it states the City of Hamilton will implement open data. We have that in our vision statement as a goal, a high-level goal. I look at the 2015 budget, and much like the 2011 budget when I stood in front of you, the 2012 budget, the 2013 budget, the 2014 budget, there's no funding for open data in the budget. So the question I pose to the council is, why was it put in the vision statement if we're now in 2015 and we're not implementing it? The reason why open data is a priority to me, and I'm speaking personally, I'm no longer on the executive of Open Hamilton. Open Hamilton continues to exist. Open Hamilton has $3,500 left in its budget. We're waiting for the day when the city starts doing open data, but right now, the people who were leading Hamilton's open data movement, which was the first in the country that was citizen initiated, people were looking at us with great excitement, are spending their time in St. Catharines, Waterloo, Toronto, Mississauga. Why? Because they want to build things. They want to do awesome things. And as much as I love City Hall and engagement, this is not the awesome thing that I'm looking to build with open data. The awesome thing is not lobbying City Council for open data. The awesome thing is what we can do with it. I have realized, much as Councillor Farr was saying a couple weeks ago, and it hit me, all of my high school friends have now left Hamilton. 3 of them moved away in the last year. They felt that there was not the opportunity for them. One of them has a startup. He moved to Cambridge because he felt the environment was more friendly for a software startup. And one of the factors was the professional development opportunities that open data provides. St. Catharines will be hosting the Provincial Open Data Conference this year. It's very close to us. I would love to see this year, the City of Hamilton have a staff member there that is the open data coordinator for the City of Hamilton, that's what they do. I will add that if we cannot implement open data this year as a staffed position, I know we're late in the budget process, that we should be looking at, does the City of Hamilton need a chief information officer, a chief technology officer? We're a large, mid-sized city. I believe we do. So maybe the way to deal with this is to put it as part of a more comprehensive review. I will end with noting that this is a great opportunity for civic engagement, what's happened tonight. And we saw many of the delegates who registered who did not come until after 17:05 p.m. because they cannot engage during the day. They cannot take that time off work when most meetings occur. The last time that this chamber was filled, and I mean filled, if the fire chief came by, I'm pretty sure he would have gone violation, was the Casino Town Hall. Many of you were here. What an amazing evening of engagement. Our city manager did a phenomenal job moderating that evening. What an energy on both sides. A very divisive issue. Everybody in the room was pretty set in where they were. But what an amazing evening. Why do we not do that more often? Why do we not do this more often? I challenge this council to set a new direction in a new term for stronger civic engagement. I challenge this council to commit to once a quarter an evening of public delegations. And not only do I challenge you to do what we've done here, which was a nice mix from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., I challenge you to do it in other municipal centers. We have a beautiful municipal center in Stony Creek that I'm familiar with. I'm assuming Larry Deaney's watching. I enjoy going and looking at the Larry Deaney mustache photo. But it's a beautiful facility that can host this type of public delegation. We have a beautiful recreation center at Westmount. We have Huntington Park, Sackville. We have beautiful facilities in Ancaster, Waterdown. Now, I would prefer the Brown Dog. I'm talking the high school is a beautiful facility. It may not be a municipal facility. Correct. You do not have a municipal service center, but Brown Dog's a little too small. I would prefer that place. But my point is that we hear a lot of concern in the community that voices aren't being heard. We're hearing a lot of we want to have more engagement. We have it in our vision statement. The question I pose is, what are we doing this year to implement it? And I strongly encourage this council that we need to have more public delegations, more public input, and they need to be somewhere where I may have difficulty getting to because my commute is shorter than Mr. Pasuto's driveway. So I will be happily take any questions, especially on open data that the councilors may have.
Thank you, Joey. Appreciate your comments. And Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Joey. I'm a big supporter of the open data process. In fact, I'm also a big supporter, and I have talked to our city manager about creating an information officer because really it does fall under somebody that is truly responsible for all information, reports, and et cetera of the city. And I think that being a city of this size, we need to be at least looking at it and considering it. Most large organizations do. So I appreciate that comment. On the engagement piece, I believe I don't know for the casino when we did it, but we did the virtual phone call one for the Ward 8 budget process. We had over 3,500 people participate over the phone as well as a live audience, and it was live streamed. Had great participation in that process. It was using at least 3 mediums to do it. So the question is, are we using technology efficiently to reach out to the broader community? That's my first question.
We could be doing it better. That's how I'll answer that question. I don't want to be critical of current attempts. That's not the energy I want to bring into that space. I believe that in person provides such an opportunity and energy that you don't get over the phone. Myself, I'm one that I believe in stepping up and filling the void. Don't complain about it. So one of the things you mentioned was telephone. One of the top requests I'm receiving for my service part of my journalism is broadcasting these meetings. It's not what I primarily do, but it's a big part of it, is people say they want an audio-only feed that they can listen to on their mobile phone. Mobile is actually really big because people can watch the stream in mobile on my stream. So I think audio is a big part of it, and the city should look at, can the city provide the audio service? It's a bit tougher, believe it or not, and this may surprise a lot of people. I know it surprised me. To stream audio is more expensive than to stream video, and that's just because the market for audio is so small, whereas video is so predominant. I think that all of those can work, but nothing replaces the ability to stand in front of this council and have that question and answer, and to have the body language, because sometimes a nuance is lost in 140 characters, or it's even lost when somebody's only listening. But when somebody can see the body language, they may understand that, well, it sounds confrontational, it is not. So I think that public engagement requires going out into the communities, and I say the communities. Personally, I live downtown now. I'm from the East Hamilton, but I feel that we lose so much by having everything just here. And I really feel like Planning Committee in Stoney Creek, there was a lot of logistical challenges, but there was such an engagement, and people appreciated that the city had come to them instead of forcing them to come to the city. And if we want people to engage, we have to go where they are. As an entrepreneur, because I am an entrepreneur, I know that if my video service was not available to people on the devices and in the way that they wish, they wouldn't use it. If my journalism was not available to them in the way that they wish to consume, they wouldn't consume it. So I say I want people to consume the news, be informed, and be engaged through my service. So I go to them instead of asking them to come to me.
Thank you, Joey. I appreciate that. I mean, that's one of the things I actually practice with Westcliff Mall and bring City Hall to the people versus having them have to come down here over and above the many community meetings that each and every one of us do around this horseshoe. But I'm trying to figure out what is one of the issues and challenges I hear from many of the community when I have issue-oriented meetings and so forth is there's a lot of voices that, and in fact, a lot of my neighborhood meetings, I get more and more people attending because I'm making sure that the louder voices, the voices that sort of try and take over the agenda, are mitigated so that they can get involved. And I find there's greater growth. So one of the biggest complaints I get from seniors and others that want to get involved is, I will not go to a meeting if it's being dominated by, a special interest or an individual, etc.
Yeah, I believe I get where you're going with your question. Through the Deputy Mayor, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for reminding me of procedure. Well, this is where the City of Hamilton can hire a professional third-party mediator to assist, because myself, thankfully, because I'm an independent entrepreneur, I have a lot of freedom. So I've done forum events, and I've actually told people, ask your question, and cut them off. Or said, your question's not relevant. Well, it's a good question. It's not relevant to this discussion. It's hard for a public official to do that. It's hard for a politician to do that because you're held to a higher standard of free speech and protecting it. But having a third-party mediator enables somebody who's completely removed from the issue emotionally to do it. I used to referee basketball, and I did a lot of training of referees. I can tell you the hardest skill set to learn as a basketball referee is the ability to cut a coach off when they're yelling at you. The ability to say, you're done, over. And you get a lot of pressure and flack for that, and you have to do it 20 times before you're comfortable. That's why you hire a third-party mediator to do that. And a third-party mediator, if you have an effective meeting that brings out those voices that are not traditionally heard in the traditional format, is worth every penny you spend. As long as it's reasonable. I'm not saying, if you paid $100,000, it'd be reasonable. But you get what I'm saying is that there are times where the city should hire professionals outside of our structure as a city. I say "our" because the city is a body that is of all the people, not because I'm part of this council. That's why we need to do that, and we need to address those things and accept. The most important thing to accept is that sometimes that's going to happen. It's going to be awkward. It's not going to be perfect. And there are going to be times where a 140-character tweet goes out that does not reflect the overall context. And there's days like I used to referee and I make a bad call. And you know what? I had to stand by that call, even though I was wrong, and I had to eat the fact I was wrong. You get over it after a couple days.
Thank you. Okay.
You actually silenced Terry.
Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I take it there's no other questions?
No other? Councillor Green?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I appreciate that. And I know the evening's getting on, so I'm sure Joey will be able to keep this as succinct as possible. You brought up a very interesting point, and I know through the casino debate, when we did have the conversation out in Waterdown, tremendous amount of participation there, and I already can sense that through some of the issues that we're having rural suburban around planning in particular, this is something that we might want to look at just in terms of getting out to communities to have these conversations. It's something I fully support from an aspect of engagement, so I thank the presenter for bringing that forward again. My one question is, which city that is comparable to Hamilton is doing the information officer thing right? Who can we point to as an example?
On Chief Technology Officer, Chief Information Officer, I cannot directly answer that question because I haven't studied that specific issue in depth. However, when you were asking the question, I was thinking that you were going to ask who was doing open data the best.
No, that wasn't what I asked.
Okay.
But it should be noted that not only did Joey silence Councillor Whitehead, but I think I just silenced Mr. Coleman.
Okay.
So that's it. That's really all I'll have. The open data questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that I have for you, Joey, I'll pick up at another time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Farr. We're going to go there? Yep. Okay, I appreciate that, Councillor. May I have a motion to receive all the presentations that were done today? Councillor Farr and Mayor Eisenberger. All those in favor? Carried. Any against? It's carried. And may I have a motion to receive items 3.29 to 3.39, written submissions respecting the 2015 budget? Councillor Pearson, Councillor B. Johnson, all those in favor? Carried. Councillor Farr.
While I have an opportunity to very quickly want to thank all of the staff that stuck around. I see our Director of Transit has been here throughout the day. It was a prevailing theme with all of the delegates and, of course, our finance staff as well. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you, councillors. Nice words. Are there any motions? Are there any notices of motions? Motion to adjourn. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pearson, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.